on YouTube. I would ask that individuals who are speaking to an application today please use the microphones provided to ensure that all discussions can be heard clearly. We acknowledge the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. And it is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. In accordance with Sections 45 and 53 of the Planning Act 1990 as amended, this meeting of the Committee of Adjustment for the City of Toronto is called to order. The Committee of Adjustment considers applications for variances from the provisions of the zoning bylaw that apply to the property, permission to extend or alter lawful nonconforming uses, and consent to sever property to create new lots. Anyone in attendance today who wants to receive a copy of the decision of the committee on an application must complete a decision request form. These forms are available in the hearing today. Please ensure that you include your email address on the form because the TLAB will be sending notifications and appeal updates by email. Once completed, please give the card to a staff member seated to my right. If you do not agree with the decision of the committee, decisions may be appealed to the Toronto Local Appeal Body, also known as TLAB, or in some limited circumstances to the Local Planning Appeal Tribunal, called LPAT. Appeal instructions are set out at the bottom of the committee's decision. To ensure a fair and timely hearing, I will vet the agenda to determine which applications can be dealt with immediately and which applications have individuals other than the applicant or agent who wish to address the committee. I will call each item in the order listed on the agenda and will ask for individuals to identify themselves. If there are people in interest, the matter will be held until all non-contested applications have been dealt with. If your item is held, we strongly encourage the applicant or agent to meet with the interested parties outside the hearing room to discuss and/or resolve concerns or issues. If no person is present in interest, the item will be called in the order listed on the agenda for non-contested applications. When an application is uncontested, the agent or applicant will proceed with his or her presentation, if required, and the committee may ask questions and/or take the matter into committee for a decision. Each speaker, including the applicant or agent, will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to address the committee, and I'll let you know when you're reaching the 5-minute mark. When addressing the committee, please come forward to the podium, clearly state your name and address, and please remember to confine your remarks to the matters outlined in the application. If you have a written submission that you read from, please hand it to the Deputy Secretary Treasurer when you are done. The applicant or agent will proceed first and will make a presentation to the committee of the application. Please note that the committee may not entertain extensive revisions to proposals at the hearing today. The committee may decide to defer the application if substantially revised to ensure the revised application is accurate and that all those entitled to notice are informed of the changes. Then individuals either in support or opposed to the application will be invited to speak. If there are several speakers sharing the same view, please select a spokesperson to present the group's opinion. We want to hear your views, however, covering the same points is not required, nor will it advance your cause. Committee members may ask questions of each speaker. When all speakers are finished, the applicant or agent will have an opportunity to rebut only those issues that were raised by the speakers. This will mark the end of discussions, and the application will then be taken into committee for a decision. Madam Deputy Secretary Treasurer, have the Chair and committee members confirmed the minutes from the last public hearing?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Panel members and staff, are there any declarations of interest in the morning time slot?
No, Madam.
No? Madam Deputy Secretary Treasurer, are there any files to be closed?
I don't have any files to be closed, but there may be someone here today that wants to withdraw.
Any withdrawals that you're, deferrals that you're aware of?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay, thank you. Okay, is there anyone here this morning who wants to close or withdraw their application? Is there anyone here who wants to defer their application? Okay. Okay, so I will now vet the agenda. So please let me know if you're in attendance for an application. Item number 1, 296 Rushton Road. Anyone in interest? Item number 2, 131 KILBARRY Road. Anyone in interest? Okay, we'll hold that item, and can you please go outside the room and speak to the agent? Item number 3, 180 DUNVEGAN Road. Anyone is here in interest for DUNVEGAN? Seeing none? Okay. Item number 4, 32 CHUDLEIGH Road. Is there anyone in interest for CHUDLEIGH? Item number 5, 233 Shaw Street. Anyone in interest? Item number 6, 274 GLEBEHOLME Boulevard. Is there anyone in interest for GLEBEHOLME? Item number 7, 165 Dovercourt Road. Anyone in interest for Dovercourt? Item number 8, 22 Glenora Avenue. Anyone in interest? Item number 9, 459 Scarborough Road. Anyone in interest? Yes? Okay, can the applicant, have you identified each other? If you can go outside and have a chat. Item number 10, 140 Seaton Street. Anyone in interest? Item number 11, 299 Manning Avenue. Anyone in interest? Okay, can you also go and have a chat? Item number 12, 33 Beaconsfield Avenue. Beaconsfield? Okay, we'll hold that. Um, 33 Beaconsfield. People that walked in. Oh, you're here? You're in interest. Is the agent for Beaconsfield here? Yes? Okay, this person's in interest. Can you have a conversation, please? Thanks. Okay, so we'll hold that. Item number 13, 95 RAVINA Crescent. 95 RAVINA Crescent. Okay, we'll hold that. Item number 14, 354 Arlington Avenue. Anyone in interest? Item number 15, 122 LAPPIN Avenue. Anyone in interest? Item number 16, 311 Beresford Avenue. Anyone in interest? Yes? Okay. If the two of you can please have a chat outside the room. Item number 17, 2 HUMEWOOD Drive. Anyone in interest for HUMEWOOD? Item number 18, 25 Richmond Street East and 20 to 26 Lombard Street. Anyone in interest? Okay. Item number 19, 116 Garden Avenue. Anyone in interest? Okay. And item number 20, 507 King Street East. Anyone in interest? Yes. Okay, if you can have a chat, that'd be great. Okay, so just to review, the items that are being held, item number 2, 131 KILBARRY Road, item number 9, 459 Scarborough Road, item 11, 299 Manning, item number 12, 33 Beaconsfield Avenue, 95 RAVINA Crescent. Is anyone here yet? Oh. You're the applicant? Okay, so you're speaking to it. So then, okay, so is there anyone else here for RAVINA? Okay, so we're removing the hold from RAVINA then, okay? And then item number 16, 311 Beresford Avenue is also held, and 20, 507 King Street East.
Through you, Madam Chair, anybody who's standing, the second row of chairs over on the that side of the room are available for sitting in. It's just less distracting for the committee members if people are sitting.
Okay. All right, so we'll start with item number 1, which is 296 Rushton Road. Panel members, we have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. 3 signature petition in support. Okay, can we have your name, please?
Hello, my name is David Riley from SGL Planning, and I'm here on behalf of the owner and applicant.
Okay. Panel members, do you need a presentation, or can we go straight to questions? Does anyone have any questions? No? No, okay, we'll take it into committee for a decision then. Okay, any comments or a motion?
I'd put forward a motion to approve. I think these are all relatively minor and in keeping with what's...
Okay,
Yeah, second that.
okay, have a motion to approve.
I think a forest.
No,
No.
no. I have a motion to approve by Mr. Reid, seconded by Mr. Mann. All in favor? Applications.
Thank you very much.
Okay, item number 2 is held. So item number 3. 180 Dunvegan Road. And we have before us a copy of the plan of surveys, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. We have a staff report from Forestry asking for condition number 2, and 3 form letters in support from residents on Hillholme and Dunvegan Road. Okay, can we have your name, please?
Good morning, Madam Chair. My name is Richard Wangle. I'm the architect for the proposal.
Okay, panel members, do you need a presentation, or can we go straight to questions? Oh, okay. Just a reminder, because I know you're here on a regular basis, as are many in the audience, can you please do this electronically as well?
Okay.
Because everything has, yeah, everything prior to the hearing, it has to be scanned into the record, and eventually they're going to stop. I mean, it's great for us to still have
Yeah.
it, but you still need to submit it in
Okay.
advance, okay? Okay, panel members, do you need a presentation, or can we go straight to questions? Do you need presentation? No? You have any questions?
I have one question.
You have one question?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think the only variance that really pops out at me is the FSI, and 0.35 is what's permitted in the area. Can you tell me what the existing?
Existing right now, I think we're at about probably 0.55 at the moment. So really, a big part that attributes to it is the third floor component within the roof. And that's why I've handed out the presentation. If you look at page number 3, we've actually did a compilation of all the densities that have been applied for at the committee. So to see that this is within the realm, you'll see circled in red are other variances that have been approved that exceed what we are. So this is a bit of an anomaly in the area, and it's typical of the condition.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions, panel members?
No, that's my concern too. This seems to be like more than double of the allowed FSI.
I had a question about the first floor height. Is that being raised?
Yes, so again, part of the presentation, if you turn to page number 5, you'll see a cross-section through the site. And this is a particular part of Dunvegan that has an uphill slope. So actually, our house at the rear is actually at one step out of the grade. There's a slope going up, and that illustrates why our first floor projects a bit higher. And then on the following page, number 6, you'll see a typical condition of this part of the block. You'll see a house under construction that we just finished, an existing house to the left, and then the extreme left is our site. So that's sort of where the block has this uphill component, and this is just working into that. That's why the platform works that way.
Any further questions? No? Okay. We'll take it into committee for a decision.
I put forward a motion to approve. I think even though the list of variances is long, I think they're all really quite minor and in keeping with the types of houses in the neighborhood.
Are you in forestry number 2?
Yes, I would like to include urban forestry condition number 2, please.
Do I have a second? I'll put forward a motion to second that.
Okay, motion to approve, moved by Mr. Reid, seconded by Ms. Larson. All in favor? Your application is
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, the next item is 32 Chudleigh Road. We have before us a copy of the plan of surveys, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, and correspondence in opposition from number 34.
That's fine.
So same thing to you next time. Please send it electronically well in advance, because it has to go in the record.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. You can have, we share. Oh, okay.
Okay, can we have your name for the record, please?
It's Antoine Tran, and I represent the owner.
Okay, panel members, do you need a presentation, or would you like to go straight to questions?
No presentation, thanks.
Okay.
I only have one question. Is this variance is caused by the existing condition, right? The variance is
Yeah, they're similar. They're not.
because of the existing condition.
Yes.
Trigger all these variances.
Any other questions, panel members? No?
I'm fine. I'm fine with it. I like to call for motion to approve. I don't see there's any conditions. No conditions.
No conditions. All right. Okay, I have a motion to approve, moved by Ms. Chan, seconded by Mr. Reed. All in favor? Your application is approved.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 5, 233 Shaw Street. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. We have a covering letter from Alex Axelrod, the agent. We have engineering asking for conditions and correspondence in opposition from 219 Shaw Street. So, can I have your name, and then I want to just clarify something? Sure.
Yeah, it's Bliss Edwards. I'm representing the owner.
I'm sorry, what's your name?
Bliss Edwards.
Okay, can you just confirm that you are no longer doing a laneway suite?
We're no longer doing a laneway street.
So then the engineering conditions would no longer be applicable because they
Exactly.
were related to the
Yeah.
engineering suite, or to the laneway suite?
laneway, yeah.
Okay, all right. Panel members, do you have any questions, or would you like a presentation, or can we go to questions?
I don't need. Only question I have is the.
Yeah, do you have any questions, anyone? No?
I have a question. Apparently, there's an issue with overlook of the balcony. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, so we are adding a 3-foot balcony on the 3rd floor, and we've worked with the neighbors, actually represented it. I think it's in the plans. We've added privacy screening all the way up and around, and coming 18 inches in. So we've addressed the privacy issues with the neighboring property.
Okay, any other questions, panel members? No? Okay, we'll take it into committee then.
I'd move to approve. I think this is a reasonable development and in keeping with the general character of the area.
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion to approve, moved by Mr. Reed, seconded by Ms. Larson. All in favor? Your application is approved. Thank you. Okay, item number 6, 274 GLEBEHOLME Boulevard. Panel members, we have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, and 4 form letters in support from residents on GLEBEHOLME. Can we have your name, please?
Yeah, good morning. My name is Andrei Galonia. I'm designer of this project.
Okay, panel members, do you need a presentation? Does anyone have any questions?
I have one question. The deck in the on the rear second story. If I'm remembering correctly, it seemed quite large, and I'm wondering if you had considered putting screening on the sides to prevent overlook.
Yeah, on second floor, balcony, we plan to do screening on the side. So it's gonna be 6 foot on each side. So in that case, you're not gonna get in in privacy of the neighbors. Regards first floor platform, the height is because 2 0.44 centimeters is because like we have walkout. So this is why, but basically as a platform is the same level as first floor.
Okay, any other questions, panel members? No more questions? All right, we'll take it into committee then. Any comments and/or motion?
I'd put forward a motion. I think this is quite reasonable and it has support from people on the street. So I'd put forward a motion to approve.
Okay, motion to approve, moved by Mr. Reid. Anyone want a second? Seconded by Mr. Solomon. All in favor? Application's approved.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Item number 7, 165 Dovercourt Road. Oh, is that Kim? Yeah. Is that Kim? No. Oh, okay. All right. Panel members, we have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. We have a covering letter from Kim Story, the agent. We have a refusal report from community planning. We have a report from development engineering. Forestry is asking for condition number 2. We have 6 form letters in support.
Hi, good morning. I'm Kim Story from Brown and Story Architects. I'm the agent, and I'm here with Ted Campanero and Sandra Pedro, who are the owners of 165 Dovercourt. I just wanted to draw attention to a couple of the items. I'm aware that the planning department has written a negative report, but we think that this laneway suite is actually ideally suited. If you refer to the aerial photograph, you can see that this particular laneway is actually it faces onto Osler Playground, which is now being redeveloped. There's been several community meetings about rejuvenating that, and so it's open on the one on its east side. The laneway itself is 15 feet wide, which is 50% wider than most normal laneways in the city. So that issues like I think this is an ideally suited for a laneway suite because of its context in the city, and there's a lot of interest with the neighbors, which is, I think, obvious from the letters of support that we've received. On the setbacks issue on this property, the size of the lot depth requires that we had to go to a 5-meter setback instead of the 7.5 in order to have a small flat on top of the garage. The garage needs to be a 2-car garage because of business purposes of Sandra and Ted, and also in order to have a viable, modest 1-bedroom apartment on top. The setback at the rear is, we have an entrance setback at 1.5, and if you take into consideration the setback from the laneway, we are actually matching the laneway setbacks of all of the other garages on the street. There is no opportunity to put green space on there because we have a 2-car garage and an entrance, so this tiny pieces of built form on the ground floor make it virtually impossible to provide the green space there, although we have provided a green roof. On the front, on the setbacks from the house itself, you'll notice on the section that the upper floor is actually set back on the existing house so that the house itself steps back, and the space of the backyard has not changed. So we feel that this is really a reasonable size for this lot. Plus, we have letters of support from the neighbors on either side, directly on each side of this space. The windows that might have been looking into neighbors' yards are all translucent glazing and upper windows. And I think Ted and Sandra wanted to say a few things.
Hi, I'm Sandra Pedro. I just want to say that our intention for the space is we have 2 school-age kids, 12 and 14, and we see this as them being their first apartment into going to U of T. And we also see this as a long-term strategy. It could be our retirement space, and our child has the house with their family. So this is really why we want to stay in the city. It's part of our family strategy. So I just want to close so that you understand what our intention of the space is for.
And one other detail, I think there was an issue about the bike parking spaces. There are 2 bike parking spaces shown on the plan. One is in the backyard itself, and one is in the first floor of the laneway suite. Thank you.
Panel members, do you have any questions? So, yeah, so you still need the variance then? Or-
Yes, well, not for the bike parking
No.
spaces.
Are you removing it?
Are we removing?
Yeah, do you want to remove variance number 5 for, you say you have 2 bike spots?
Yes.
Okay, so you're revising it then by removing variance number 5?
Yes.
Okay.
Chair, I have one question.
Yeah, go ahead.
You mentioned a green roof. Is it, where is it shown on your submission?
It's shown on.
I cannot find it.
It's shown on the 3-dimensional rendered view.
Sorry.
There is an aerial view shown in the presentation.
Aerial view.
It would be aerial view A16.
A16, okay. Because, you see, as your drawings, some text that went funny. We cannot find the.
Oh, really?
So sometimes when you turn in PDF, you have to embed the text. Save it as ultimate version.
Yeah. I'm very sorry. I wasn't aware that had happened.
So we cannot read some of the text.
Oh.
Gone funny.
Well, and green roof is noted also on A09 in the section.
I can't find that drawing either.
Here,
it's on the roof.
A15.
It's on the perspective. Okay. Yeah. So is it part of the negotiation or work with the planning department that you will provide the green roof?
No, we've always had that as part of the project.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions, panel members? No?
I have. And also the variance number 4, it cuts into the 45 angular plane. Where do I see how much it projects? Do you have an illustration for that?
The illustration on section A09, I believe we're showing that where that 45-degree setback at the 4.0 meter height would have occurred. And if we have the 45-degree setback, it really impinges on a fairly minimal second floor space. So, and because the neighbors don't, and this was explained very carefully to the neighbors when they looked at the plans, and they're happy with them.
They're happy with it.
Yeah. So we have the 2 immediate neighbors plus 4 others in the same block.
I see. Okay, I finished my questions.
Anyone else? Any more questions? No? Okay, we'll take it into committee then. Discussion?
I think a bit of discussion. I understand planning's concerns with this, but I think that it was explained well why these conditions, or why these variances are being requested. I think that the park to the back makes a very big difference, right, in terms of the context. That's open. That's not going to change. And the thing that caught my eye too was the second floor. The second floor does step back significantly, so that angular plane is less of a material issue, I think.
Mitigated by that, yeah.
Yeah. So
I agree with Peter. I agree with Peter. Actually, I do think that, especially they have support from the neighbors. I think that if you put on a laneway street, it will look like that. I think that it will fit the development. I agree with.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think my biggest observation is just the location across from the school field. And eyes on the school field is not going to be a bad thing. I do understand planning's concerns, but one of the only reasons that I would be open to supporting this is the location of directly overlooking the school field and the support of the adjacent neighbors.
I would just add that to what, I agree with everything that's been said. I think, in my opinion, this is probably the best orientation of a laneway suite that I've seen far from all the applications we've had before us. And it's, like you said, it's got a lot of support. I think it actually makes sense because it's looking at green space. It's not looking into graffitied walls and other garages. I would actually respectfully, I do understand planning's concerns, but I sense here.
I would like to put forth a motion to approve, and I do understand the engineer, the staff concern, but you still have to meet the engineer's requirement, the condition for laneway suite anyway. So I will put forth with condition of forestry number 2, and also the requirement for laneway by the development engineering department.
So I have a motion to approve the application, including the engineering conditions in the December 11th report. Forestry condition number 2, moved by Ms. Chan, seconded by Mr. Reed. All in favor? Oh, yes, as amended.
Yeah.
Sorry. All in favor? Your application is approved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 8, 22 Glenora Avenue. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, and 3 form letters in support from 2420 Glenora Road and 593 Pond Road.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is David Smith. I'm here representing the homeowners at 22 Glenora. Before you is a pretty straightforward application. I think a few of the variances get a little confusing because more than 50% of the basement is sticking out of the ground, so things read as if it's the second floor when really it's the ground floor. That would be the last 3 variances. We've worked extensively with community planning and we have their support. There's obviously no opposition on file. And we have all of the neighbors that are directly impacted by this proposal supporting it. Happy to answer any questions that you have.
Does anyone have any questions?
Just a very small one. Variance number 2 and 3, are they because of the existing conditions?
The variance number 2, I believe, is the side yard setback. That's not an existing condition, but it is exacerbated by the shape of the lot. The examiner took it to the proposed basement entry and the tightest corner of the triangle.
I don't know where it was taken, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And variance 3 is, again, it's with regards to the basement being more than 50% out of the ground. So technically it refers to the ground floor, but it reads as if it's the second floor.
Okay.
Any further questions? Okay, we'll take it into committee. Mr. Solomon, you ready to move a motion?
My comments are, I believe the variances are minor. Many of the variances relate to the existing situation. I'd like to move a motion of approval of the requested variances, and I believe there's no conditions.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, I have a motion to approve, moved by Mr. Solomon, seconded by Ms. Larson. All in favor? Your application is approved.
Thank you very much.
Okay, item number 9 is held. Item number 10, 140 Seaton Street. Panel members, we have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. We have email correspondence from Heritage Preservation Services. We have staff reports from engineering, and we have forestry asking for condition number 2. We have correspondence from 134 Seaton Street expressing concern, interest in the application. Can we have your name, please?
Good morning. I'm Brian Crowley. I'm here to represent the homeowner.
Okay, panel members, do you need a presentation or can we go straight to questions? Ready? Does anyone have any questions?
Heritage review, or you're subject to a heritage?
Yes, so we've actually spoken with Kristen Flood from Toronto Heritage, and because the laneway proposed suite is going to be at the back of the property, and it's not going to change the look of the building and can't be seen from the street, that she has no objections to it.
Okay, are you required to apply for a permit, a heritage permit, or you're no longer?
I'm not sure if we're required to apply for it, but we have correspondence from Ms. Flood saying that she doesn't have any objections to it.
There's no staff report on that. Okay, thank you. We do not need to put it in conditions.
Okay, are there any other questions, panel members? No?
I'd like to put forward a motion to approve.
Okay.
And I think there's a urban forestry 2 condition.
And engineering.
And engineering conditions.
Okay. I have a motion to approve, including forestry condition number 2 and engineering conditions in the February 12th report, moved by Ms. Larson. Do I have a second? Okay, seconded by Mr. Salomon. All in favor? The application is approved.
Thank you kindly.
Item number 10 is held. Item number 11, or I'm sorry, item 11 is held. And item 12 is held. So we're going to go to number 13, which is 95 RAVINA Road, or Crescent, rather. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, and email correspondence from engineering, the technical coordinator for Heritage Preservation Services. Good morning. Can we have your name, please?
Yeah, good morning. My name is Neil Asquith. I'm here on behalf of the homeowner.
Okay, panel members, do you need a presentation?
No.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions?
No.
No? All right, we'll take it into committee then.
I'm ready to move for approval. Okay. With no conditions.
Okay, motion to approve, moved by Ms. Chan, seconded by Mr. Reed. All in favor? Your application's approved. All right. Item number 14, 352 Arlington Avenue. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. Can we have your name for the record?
Good morning, Madam Chair, members. Ida Evangelista on behalf of the owner of 352 Arlington.
Okay, panel members, do you need a presentation? Does anyone have any questions?
I'd like to put forward a motion to approve, particularly since there's no long building face and there's some articulation to the building.
Okay.
I think it's...
You think it fits?
It fits.
Okay, have a motion to approve, moved by Ms. Larson, seconded by Mr. Salomon. All in favor? Your application's approved.
Thank you very much.
Item number 15, 122 LAPPIN Avenue. Panel members, we have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. We have staff reports from community planning and development engineering asking for conditions.
Very good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Nelson Espinola. Here is the agent for this application.
Okay, panel members, do you need a presentation? Do you have any questions?
Just, are you aware of the community planning report in there?
Yes, we are aware with it, and we are okay with that condition.
Okay, any other questions?
No.
I'd like to, I believe this is a minor variance. The variances requested are minor. I think they're appropriate. And I would move approval of the requested variances subject to community planning conditions.
Okay, are there engineering conditions as well? Yeah.
And so I would add the engineering services conditions as well.
Okay, I have a motion to approve, including the engineering conditions in the October 28th report and planning condition for permeable pavers, moved by Mr. Salomon, seconded by Mr. Reed. All in favor? The application is approved.
Thank you.
Item number 16 is held. Item number 17, number 2, HUMEWOOD Drive. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, presentation from Mr. Cunha, the agent, that includes photographs, a proposal explanation. We have a staff report from planning asking for conditions, and we have 3 form letters in support from number 11, 13, and 22. Morning.
Good morning, committee.
We just need your name for the record.
Craig Race, the architect, and this is the owner, Sandra Mayo, with me as well.
Panel members, do you need a presentation?
No. The planning suggests two conditions, or three? Two conditions. Are you okay with that?
We would kindly ask that point number 1 not be required here. The point is for translucent windows against the north and west property lines. We actually have larger than the as-of-right setbacks for a laneway suite in this case. And given the size of the backyards and the fact that we're across from a McDonald's, would suggest that privacy is not a concern here, and we just simply don't believe it's a necessary requirement, but at your discretion.
So if it's translucent, it will affect the quality of the suite, or?
Well, yes. So we do have bedrooms facing those walls, and we would ideally like views out of the bedrooms to the surrounding trees. And privacy is not a concern. This is a large area.
Besides, you can use blinds, I guess.
And it's not required in the bylaws for a typical laneway suite, so we just found it to be unusual.
Okay.
Any other questions, panel members? We can be if there's no questions.
What do you think about eliminating the condition number 1 then?
I'm fine with that.
I'm fine with that too. So
I would keep condition number 2 still.
number 2, yeah, that's what's right. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. So I would like to move a motion for approval with the conditions recommended by planning number 2 only.
Yeah, anything? Yeah, that's fine. I have a motion to approve removing condition number 1, so only approving condition number 2 in the February 4th planning report, moved by Ms. Chan. Is there a second? Mr. Solomon is seconding. All in favor? The application is approved with the 1 condition.
Thank you. Good luck today.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Item number 19, or I'm sorry, 18. Okay. I flipped the sheet too quickly. Okay. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. We have a covering letter from Kim Kovar, the solicitor. We have a heritage memorandum that was prepared by ERA Architects, previous committee decision, and site-specific bylaws. Morning.
Morning, Madam Chair. My name is Kim Kovar. I'm here on behalf of the applicant. This is a large development currently under construction in the block bound by Richmond, Victoria, and Lombard, just on the edge of the financial district. The tallest component of the building is 46 stories. The application before you today is to seek permission to increase the height of the mechanical penthouse located on this element here from 18.1 to 18.3 meters in total height. It will not be visible from the street. That is the only exterior change to the building under construction. The only other thing that we're seeking to do is to reallocate space within the existing building. So there is some unused mechanical space at the upper level. We are seeking to convert that to amenity space. That will be extra amenity space, so it now counts for GFA, which accounts for a partial increase in the permitted residential GFA. It's increasing in total by 238 square meters, which is a fraction of 1% of the total permitted. And the unit breakdown is proposed to be revised slightly. The number of 3-bedroom units is not changing. We are adding 7 1-bedroom units and 4 2-bedroom units. And that triggers a variance with respect to the number of convertible 2-bedroom units. As I say, the number of 3s is not changing. The original proposal showed 45 2-bedroom units, which would be designed to be capable of being converted into 3-bedroom units. So they're basically large 2-bedroom units where the owners were putting a tiny 3rd bedroom in. The market has not responded particularly well to those units. The building, all of the available units have been sold except 5 of those so-called convertible units. We'd like to convert them to straight-up 2-bedroom units because there is a demand for those in the area. And that is the extent of the variances. This has been reviewed by planning staff. I know you don't have a memo, but it's been reviewed as part of the site plan application, and staff have no concerns, nor do heritage staff at the city.
Okay, thank you. Panel members, do you have any other questions?
Yes, I have one question. You have mentioned that the trigger of the increase of 320 square meter is mainly because you increase the amenity space, or is it triggered by the conversions?
No, it is almost entirely as a result of space that was previously mechanical space. So we don't need that much for the mechanical, so they have relocated some of what was previously amenity space into that mechanical space. A portion of that is extra amenity space, so that counts, and that accounts for part of the increased residential GFA. But there is, in addition to that, some of the amenity space that was moved up top was then converted into residential units. That space didn't count when it was amenity, it now counts as residential. So it's a combination of new units and new extra amenity space.
So the extra amenity space, is it a requirement, or is just you want to have more amenity?
The owner wants to have more amenity space in the top. It's the way the building design laid out. We ended up with space in the top adjacent to the mechanical, which wasn't suitable for units, but it made good additional indoor amenity space. So it's just the way the building laid out in the end.
So I'm just a little bit concerned is like the increase is like over 300 square meter is like about 3,600 square feet.
But this building, you have to remember, this building is over 500,000 square feet. This is a big project. The total increase is less than 1%. It's 0.4% of the total permitted GFA on the site today. It is truly nominal and is not increasing the footprint or the floor plate or the height or the size in any respect. There is no change to the permitted height or envelope.
That's good to hear that.
Thank you.
Will this feature a net increase in amenity space then?
Yes.
Or decrease?
Yes,
or
a net
slightly more?
increase in amenity space. Not only are we providing more amenity space at the required rate for the extra 11 units, on top of that, we're providing more.
Okay.
Any other questions? No? Okay, we'll take it into committee then.
Of a motion. I think this is a reasonable evolution of a project as it gets developed. So, motion to approve.
I'll second. Motion.
Okay, I have a motion to approve the application moved by Mr. Reed, seconded by Ms. Larson, sorry. All in favor?
Thank you very much.
Approved. Okay, next item is item 19, 116 Garden Avenue. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, email correspondence from the Manager of Development Engineering, and opposition from 109 Fern. Good morning.
Morning, Lauren Rose, the architect. Opposition from Fern, if you read the letter, had nothing to do with zoning. My client has spoken with them, and it's all amenable now. I can give a presentation if you want, or
I'm not sure that we need it. I think we'll probably go straight to questions if there's any.
I had a question. There was one little comment about a large tree in the rear yard.
it's not in our yard, it's in the, we can't get a building permit without dealing with forestry.
So this is a two-story garage?
No, one story. So the bylaw, it's a weird part of the bylaw. They limit the size of detached garages now, and we're just slightly over that. But to get 2 cars and garbage bins in, you need to be over that allowable GFA.
Any other questions?
The only concern I have is the height of the is variance number 2. I think.
Sure.
Can you explain that? I do not know where it's
Sure.
from.
This is exactly why I'm part of the committee that appealed the new code, and it's still under review. I'll just show you.
Still the same thing, right? Yeah.
So if you look here, because we have a gable, they're taking the measurement to the top. Our height is actually 6.88 meters. It's absurd that this is a variance. And it will be changed, no question. So we're well under the required height for walls. All the houses at Cabbagetown couldn't be built today if this was part of the bylaw then.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, we'll take it into committee. Discussion?
Well, my comments are, I'm glad you pointed that out in terms of the height. It really helps us understand that, and I believe the variances are minor, and so I'd like to move approval of the requested variances.
Okay, do I have a seconder?
I'll second that. Yeah.
All right, motion to approve, moved by Mr. Salomon, seconded by Ms. Chan. All in favor? Your application is approved.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Okay, I propose that we take a 5-minute break and then start with the held items, which the first item will be 131 KILBARRY Road when we come back. So we'll be back at 10:25.
Is the agent for Beaconsfield in the room? They may be out in the hallway still. Oh, this gentleman would like to speak to you about the application as well.
Okay, item number 2, 131 KILBARRY Road. Yeah, while you're coming, I'll read the sheet. Okay, we have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. Forestry is asking for condition number 2. We have a form letter in support signed by number 47, and we have a lot of opposition from people on KILBARRY and Spadina Road. Now, is your opposition still here? Where's the opposition? Can you please grab a seat along the front row here?
May I approach, please?
Yeah. Sure.
Without having to use the
is this just
overhead projector. It's just in.
Is it okay? But it's different from what they already have. So you have to. Do you have it electronically to send to staff or not?
All it is explanatory. We will, in the future, certainly get you the digital copies.
Okay. How many
Hello, Mr.
people
Dan.
are speaking just before we get started? Just 1, 2? Okay.
All right.
So for the record, can we have your name, please? And then
Peter Higgins of Peter Higgins Architect Incorporated.
And then you have 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Beg your pardon, I wanted to give you these two.
Now, do you have anything for the opposition to kind of?
They've seen all.
I know, but to follow along.
That would be great.
Why don't I give them 1?
Well, it's because it's 2 views.
You can't. Can you use the overhead?
We had a neighbor meeting. Some of these neighbors were in attendance. And the idea is to show you in these 3D views, it's better for you to understand the shape and size, particularly the setback of the breezeway, which is really what is creating the issue. The breezeway links the garage to the house. That's my client's preferred method. As a result, we have very large length and depth variances because the garage is now attached. You have, who's doing the overhead? There we go. Thank you. So this is the site plan, colored site plan, etc. And I would like to speak to it in terms of what's come up this morning with the planning representative for the neighbor to the south at 521. There is a tree at issue that the south neighbor, it's a boundary tree. It's mostly on our property, but nevertheless, it is right here. And I've been conversing with my arborist, and we believe that we can create a situation where we don't have an issue with that. And I've either given you my drawing or I've given the opposition my drawing. My drawing that I showed to the planner showed a grade beam cutting the corner in the basement right here. Grade beam slopes mightily south. Why we thought we could remove it, but I keep it. This would still remain here, and that's exactly where the front wall of the house is now. First and second floor. The basement here, protection zone that is required is 10-foot protection plus excavation. So I was mentioning to the planner for the neighbor that we would forward this to our arborist, have a revised arborist report, which share that with the neighbors, etc. In and of itself is not the variance. The variance, of course, has to do with the front yard setback because we're on a corner. We can only relate to the house immediately south. Or 2 to the south is here, their front yard's about here, then every neighbor to the south of that along Spadina is much closer to Spadina Road. Said earlier, this main second floor wall is where the existing house is. Save and except this house has a one-story bump. We have intentionally back wall in line with the neighbor's back wall. They have a pool here, another cabana. Both cabanas are right up against the property line. Spoken with Mr. and Mrs. Mann, who are east. They have a study here with windows of the courtyard, as well as in their garage, which is on the property. Their concern was looking out this way over the backyard of my client's proposal. But we lowered the height of the garage. I argued to the Dans that this garage could be placed right in the that I would be more detrimental to their enjoyment of their from the study. They acknowledged that was a reasonable argument to make. However, we're still prepared to eliminate two of the variances. As per my discussions with the planner, Martin, both of them are quite minor. We think they would be approved in any event, but nevertheless, the side yard setback along the north side, which is the garage, would be eliminated. So if we can go through the list, number 1 is eliminated. We're taking away a very slight overage to the height.
Okay, so number 1 under 569.13, the first variance?
Correct, that is eliminated.
So you're removing it, okay.
Right. As I said earlier, number 2, the detached dwelling will have a depth of 29.86. It's because of the attachment of the garage with the breezeway. Number 3, so it remains. Number 3 remains. We're at 0.81 times coverage, or FSI. That is not uncommon in Forest Hill. It's at the upper limit, admittedly, but it's not uncommon.
Yeah, you're correct.
Okay.
So can you just tell me the second?
I'm going to wrap up. Number 4,
Which one?
minimum required front yard setback. That as we're stating, we're proposing to build the house where the existing house is. Rear yard setback is because it's connected, the garage is connected. The garage could in fact be much closer to the rear property line, but because it's connected through the breezeway, it becomes an issue. Exterior stairs, we believe that's a very minor variance, and I've eliminated number 7, which is the required side yard setback along the north side. The garage, one-story garage, used to extend slightly past the front wall of the house. The house has always been at the allowable side yard setback, and now the garage will be. So we eliminate number 7.
All right, so you're
that's
amending,
the totality.
You're amending by removing variance number 1 and 7.
Correct.
Okay. So I'm now going to ask you to vacate the podium.
I will.
We can hear from the opposition, and then we'll have you back.
Thank you.
Okay, who wants to speak first?
Good morning, members of committee. My name is Martin Quarkapome. I'm an associate and planner with Western Consulting. I'm here on behalf of the owners of 521 Spadina, who is the property immediately south on that drawing right there. I believe they're the most impacted by this proposal. So I've provided the committee with a letter late yesterday outlining the concerns that I do have as a planner and concerns raised by my client. And I've done an analysis of the 4 tests of the Act under Section 45(1), as well as giving my opinion on the 7, now 5 variances proposed to the committee. So what I won't do, given my time limit, is go through my entire letter, which you have a copy. You should have a copy in front of you. But what I will do is focus on some points and elaborate on them, which I think are important for the context. So the first item is, as a planner, my job is to review variances under the guise of proper justification under the Planning Act and the Zoning and Official Plan. To my knowledge, I don't believe the applicant has done this assessment. I've spoken with city staff. They do not have a planning analysis or report on file for these recommended variances. given the severity of them, I think it would be appropriate to do so. And in lack of having one, I did my own. It's part of my submissions. And through my report, I did do a full review of variances within 500 meters of the site over the last 10 years. I made a submission request to the city and analyzed that data to see how this proposal would fit within what's been approved or even applied or denied in the immediate area. And while I do agree that some variances, such as the density, have been approved in the past in this neighborhood, what I did not find was the combination of variances. 7 versus 5 doesn't really matter in this case, but the number of variances as a whole have not been approved in this neighborhood that I've seen through the requests made to the city. The second item is that front yard tree. I did speak with the project architect, and he did provide me with a version of the sketch you see before you in terms of modifications to the basement of the building. In principle, I think it makes sense, but I'm going to reserve my opinion until I see the report, cutting back the report by the arborist, that is, which I would want to peer review with my client as well to make sure it could work, cutting back the basement, but leaving the 2 stories above as is, currently designed. And until I see a report that says it can work, I can't say one way or the other that satisfies my client's objective and needs of his property. I do include some images of the tree in my submissions. Figures 1 and 2 show the tree that does lean substantially onto my client's property and does, which he does maintain on his site, and provides him a lot of shade within his front yard. So the tree is of utmost importance to preserve. Again, it's not one of the variances, but when you're looking at variances and community development, you look at the holistic approach, not just individual numbers one by one. And we are undertaking our own arborist exercise to see, and will likely verify the information provided to the architect, who has committed to send that to my attention. And the last point I want to raise is just the overall massing of the development project. Now, this breezeway and the garage, I understand that he has perhaps as of right permissions to locate that detached garage further back. I haven't done that analysis. I can't verify one way or the other whether that's true. What I can look at is what I have before me today. And in my opinion, a building of that length, almost 30 meters, is uncalled for in this neighborhood. In my research, I did come across a couple that were 30 meters, 30 plus, but in those cases, the lots were through lots having frontages on 2 roads and were much deeper and larger. So under my assessment of these variances in the neighborhood, I have not seen anything to this depth or this length. And the last item as part of the massing issue would be the enclosure of this rear yard on 521 Spadina. There is a 2-story brick home that extends down the east side. There's large mature trees on the south side of this property on the neighboring site. These images are found in my submissions, figures, I believe, 5 and 6. And what you will see in those images is a clear sky view looking north of an unobstructed view towards Kilbarry. By developing the northern property as shown, it's our opinion that that would further obstruct the view. I understand that they do have height permissions up to 11 stories, but they also have a requirement to be 7.5 meters back from the rear lot line. So by closing off their rear yard, this property on 521 now has buildings on all 3 sides, or at least some form of enclosure on all 3 sides, but would further detriment the use of that back community space of my client.
I need you to wrap up.
And that's actually it. So
Okay.
I've made some recommendations in my letter, which I don't have time to go through, but essentially we're looking for more consultation or refusal of the application until a more satisfactory plan is prepared. Thank you.
Panel members, do you have any questions of the speaker? No? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, who's the next? You? Okay.
Good morning. My name is Simon Mass. I'm the neighbor at 521 Spadina, the house in question just south of this property. I mean, this application is really important for my family and for a lot of the neighbors. I flew back late last night from a trip that had to be canceled for our 20th wedding anniversary just to be here today. Didn't want to just submit a letter. But the questions and the issues at hand are going to be difficult to cover in the time limit, and I'm hoping the planner's letter from yesterday can cover a lot of those. But right now, for us, the big issue was, one of the main issues was the tree, which I believe the architect is trying to work on a plan, so I won't go further on that. But we have a 2.5-story, 70-year-old tree, so we'll wait for the arborist report and hopefully we can save that tree. The main issue for us right now is that we are, which isn't really shown on this image, but our east view is 100% blocked by a 2-story house from one of our neighbors that is actually here and who's also opposing the current plans. So the bottom 2 images will show you that we're completely blocked by a 2-story structure, brick structure, and the only real opening that we have right now is to the north of us, which is the second image that you can see from there. The garage, the breezeway, and the entire home design right now, for us as neighbors, is a major issue. The size of the structure for one of the busiest intersections in Forest Hill just doesn't seem really appropriate. And, you know, we'd like for you to be able to take that into consideration, and also the fact that there are maybe a dozen neighbors right now opposing this, whereas there's one person supporting it. And my understanding from reaching out to other neighbors, there's about 9 other letters of opposition that are going to be filed soon. We'd like to see where we can be with making a fair compromise with the neighbor. We're not anti-development in any way. We would love for a new house to be going up next door to us, but my house, my lot size, and my neighbor to the south of us, 519 Spadina, who's also here as well today, are much bigger lots. And our houses are much smaller than the current proposal for this house, which, if you include the basement, is about an 8,500 square foot house. Running out of time, but I wanted to mention, the architect had mentioned that that most of the houses south of us on Spadina are closer to the street. I don't believe they are. I was just speaking to my neighbor right now. Most of the houses are in line with ours or our neighbor's home. They're not closer towards Spadina. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I did have a question.
Okay, can you come back? Yeah. I have questions.
I have a question of the front yard setback that's being proposed. From what I understand, are they looking to build in line with the current front yard, where the current wall is of the house?
I think as far as the front yard is, they're planning on building where the existing house is. They're not asking to change that.
And do you have a concern then with that front yard setback?
I think if you look at the existing house right now, just height-wise, massing-wise, it's not as large as the new house. So I don't know if I'm even able to object to that. Obviously, I think the biggest concern that you'll see from most of the neighbors' letters are that just the house is really, really big for the actual lot. Considering, again, it's on pretty much one of the busiest intersections that has, traffic issues from 3 o'clock till like 5. But I'm not opposed to where I'm not opposed to where the property line is, because it's in line with what we have right now. And again, like I just want it for the record, we're certainly not anti-development. This house, we've been living here for 10 years, and we were looking forward, for this house to be either renovated or changed, because it is an eyesore.
Any other questions of the speaker? Thanks.
Thank you.
Higgins. What's that? No, I think there was only 2 speakers.
A lot of talk about the busyness of the intersection. There's no question. It is busy. It is also full of trees and hydro poles, light boxes, you name it, at the corner here of Spadina. Very busy. Belted building within the, at the existing main two-story wall, without any side yard variances, very minor height variances. Couldn't really change the outlook from the south neighbor. Earlier, we intentionally lined up the rear of the house with his, so overshadowing or window issues as on the side. We've had the ability to get into his backyard to property line, bananas and able to stand in this area, and imagine that this wall would not be an issue. Very low on the story. This is for again, lower Mr. Dan and his wife and their concerns. The busy intersection business is why we put the garage to the far east end of the site. I mentioned earlier that that garage could be right in the corner of the property, which would be detrimental to the Dans and their outlook from their study. That would further box in Simon, who is immediately to the south of 521, who spoke. So we think we've done many things, including reducing the FSI, reducing the height, working with a planner for 8 months to discuss what they would appreciate and would not have a problem with, and there is no planning report. Martin, the planner, referred to a private planner's report, I believe, is basically what he's asking for. We didn't really think that was necessary. We don't often do it, but I was just quickly going through the list of comparables, and I'll quickly go through that. 259 Warren Road has a height, major height variance and length of 23 meters and a depth of 29.27. 46 Forest Hill Road, 0.785 times, 22 and a 25 length and depth. 382 Russell Hill Road, 20.54 length. 83 Dunlow at 84 times coverage, 21.27 length, 21.72 depth. 429 Russell Hill Road, 25.24 length, 23.75 depth, front yard setbacks, side yard setbacks. And lastly, 48 Forest Hill Road, 26.12 length, 26.42 depth, front yard setbacks and side yard setbacks. So I think the fact that the planning department has not taken a position on this suggests that we have not only met with them and adjusted, but done what is not uncommon in the neighborhood in terms of linking the garage to the house. There is a number of instances of this. Many of what I've just told you are all like that. They're connected houses. We've gone to great extent to try to minimize the look of a massive facade by setting the breezeway back and lowering its height and lowering the height of the garage further. I've spoken to you, and the markup there shows clearly that we think we can save the tree. We hadn't heard from the neighbor about this tree. And by the way, I've never seen the report that was submitted yesterday. We check daily, and I guess it came in later and it wasn't on the system. I'd like to see that, if I may, so that I'm aware of what the concerns and comments are. Thank you.
Can I ask you a quick question? The examples you just gave us?
Yes.
You know the rough radius, what's the radius of that? Do you know?
Within 500 meters or just over 500 meters, but all in the Forest Hill area that I would say would be, you're walking the dog route. If you would go from this corner property to pretty much any of the others, I think actually all of them, would be a walk that you would do in the evening with your dog. So you would come across similar situations of length and depth.
I have a quick question. This may have already been mentioned, but what's the actual depth of the house, excluding the breezeway? So if the breezeway didn't exist, what would the house depth be?
$22.6.
The depth would be 19 meters.
22.6 on your drawing, but I don't know where it measures.
22.6 is from the front wall. That would be the length, because the length is taken from the front wall. The depth is taken from the required front yard setback, which is the average of the existing house and the neighbor's house to the south. So it's a bit of an anomaly, but the south neighbor admitted that we are building, replacing a house. I actually kind of like the house. I think it's kind of a modern design, but we are replacing it with a home that is larger for sure, as is the natural way of doing things these days. We intentionally set it so that it was at the exact same front wall as the existing house with no variances on his side. Height variance to the point where you couldn't even see it because it's only the upper 10% sloped roof that would be at issue, and we've eliminated that just to be safe. We feel that eliminating the front yard setback for the garage allows for 2 cars to park there without question, a little bit further away, and now aligned with the main wall of the house, I think is appropriate. We've listened to the neighbors. We had a meeting with the councillor. We did a walk around. We first approached the neighbors back in June or July with a package that they commented on. We reduced many of the variances and came back to the neighbors more recently and had a good, frank discussion. I've given you what I can. The issue with the tree was simply this morning I heard about it, and we're prepared to work hard to try to save that tree.
4 questions.
Yes, please.
The first one is I noticed your proposed site plans suggest relocate the driveway, the curb cut, and also you're introducing some concrete walkway. What has the building, the planning, got any comment on that, or have you discussed with the transportation?
No, there's been no word from transportation. As I said earlier, by pushing the garage to the east, it takes the worry of backing in, driving out away from the corner.
I'm not questioning about the proposal. I'm questioning whether you require more approval or review by the...
No, we at one time had a small landscape, side yard landscape variance. We don't have that anymore.
You don't need to go through site plan approval either?
No, we do not.
Okay. A second question is, because we only have your footprint of your proposal, you call that little structure breezeway. I thought breezeway is something that is open.
Well, it can be open and it can be closed.
Technically, this is part of the building.
Yes, it is.
We cannot say that without it, it's shorter building. You can actually have.
Well, you.
It is enclosed. It's a finished space, and.
It's a walkway, yes.
Yeah, it's quite a wide walkway.
If I may say, if we had a roof and it was open to the breeze, it would still be a connected structure. Yeah. And so the length of the house would still be from the very front to the back of the garage.
As the whole structure is.
But if we had no structure connecting the two, the garage could be wherever it wants to be. It could be much closer to the east property line.
This case is not bad.
We're just trying to say that the breezeway is an important element so that with our weather, you can park and go into the house directly. We didn't want to have a situation where, because where would you put a garage? Mm-hmm. The only other place you'd put a garage would be right in here because it's closest to Spadina. You don't want to, if you wanted to try to block the sound and the traffic noise, you put it here, but it's too close to the intersection. So we didn't do that. We elected to put it here, away from the traffic.
Okay. Are there any other questions, panel members? Okay. So we'll take it into committee then, discussion.
My point is that because by naming different part of the building differently, does not mean that make the buildings shorter.
Not trying to.
And that's what I try to So set the mindset correctly. If we are proving that a variance, we are proving a length of whatever big number. That's all.
I agree, Yim. And I think, it's important in the plans you see, it's not just a garage, but there's a foundation, there's a room underneath it, which is part of the house.
Yes,
So-
and I say that if it's a walkway, it's quite wide, and I'm not too sure because they do not provide the real plan. I do not know what the space is used for either. So I'm just trying to say that we cannot look at it as a breezeway. We have to look at it as a whole structure.
And I'm feeling that in combination, it's just too much. I think the depth plus the rear yard, and then just the overall massing of the structure, especially on KILBARRY.
Yeah, and I would think that if it doesn't have that structure, we call it breezeway, it probably will keep more in line with the buildings in the neighborhood, more broken up. This is my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's also, me, part of the concern is the size and the setbacks, but also on the size of the lot. It is a smaller lot to carry that.
I will just say that I'm of mixed minds. I know we've seen similar things in the past. It is a big structure. It's well designed. The applicant's been trying to work out as much as he can, but it is, I would agree that a breezeway to me is kind of just pathway, maybe with a roof over it that you walk to the garage. I am somewhat conflicted, but I leave it to someone here to make further comments or move a motion.
I agree with the two comments in terms of the overall size and length, the depth of this house. I just don't see how it fits in with the character of the immediate community. I'm not persuaded by the additional information that was provided that there are many other examples of similar length, depth of homes in this area. So, no comments from other members. I'd like to move forward a motion of refusal of the requested variances. As amended.
Okay, I have a motion to refuse the application moved by Mr. Salomon, seconded by Mr. Reed. All in favor? Okay, the application is refused.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks.
Okay, item number 9, 459 Scarborough Road. And to the people that were here in opposition, have you filled in the decision cards? Can you make sure you give them to the staff before you leave? And make sure you have an email that way you'll get information if it's appealed. All right, item number 9, 459 Scarborough Road. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. We have email correspondence from permits and enforcement parking. We have a staff report asking for permeable pavers from planning. Forestry is asking for condition number 2. We have 2 form letters in support from 454 and 455 Scarborough Road, and opposition from 461. Is the opposition still here? Okay. So if we could have a presentation from you.
My name is Bern Paisler, and I'm acting on behalf of 459 Scarborough. Okay, first of all, I'll just go through the variances. Number 1, we're applying for to have 0 parking spaces on the lot because, first of all, as you can see, this is the picture of the front of the house. You can't get down that driveway. It's virtually impossible. It's 6.88 feet. Yet the city deemed that to be a driveway and a parking space at the rear because it was existing. So, the there's no front yard parking allowed on this street, so we can't apply for front yard parking. So my client has street parking, and that's why we're asking for zero parking on the lot. The FSI that we're going for is 0.8 times the lot area. In this area with a rear addition, you could actually go to 0.69. So we're 11% over what is permitted. Number 3, planning has said that we require a 0.43 meter setback for the entire wall. There was some kind of mix-up with the examiner. They thought we were cantilevering the second floor, but we actually, in the elevation, if you look at the elevation, it looks like a cantilever, but what it is, it's actually the front eaves of the house coming down that you see on that elevation. So really the second floor and the first floor, it lines up. It's not a cantilever. So I think the examiner was confused about that. That's why they hit us for the 0.13 meters. But we'd like to change that to 0.43, number 3, instead of 0.13.
Okay, so you're amending variance number 3 to?
Yeah, 0.43 from the north side measured at the second story projection, which there is no second story projection. Number 4 is also dealing with the second story projection, and there isn't one. So number 4, I'd like to
just go back to number 3. So
Number 3?
number 3, that 0.13 from the north side lot line measured to the second story, you want that to be 0.43, the same as measured from the ground floor wall?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, and now what are you changing in number 4?
Number 4, I'm just going to leave it the way it is.
Is there anything else you're amending, or is that it?
No, that's the only thing that I'm amending.
Okay.
Number 5 is the deck. It's basically lining up with the existing house at 0.43 meters on the north side. That was a variance. And number 6, the front yard landscaping planning is requested that we put permeable pavers in there, which we agreed upon. And then the last one deals with the parking under 43886.
All right, we'll have you back up after we hear from the opposition, and then you can just respond to the issues that are raised.
Yeah, okay.
Thanks. So you have the floor. So we need your name and address, please.
Morning, committee members. My name is Georgette Fletcher, and I'm in a house just north of 459 Scarborough Road. I'm at 461 Scarborough Road. I submitted my objection as of February 6th, outlining 7 of my concerns. You know, I've spoken to the parties outside of the room who've indicated they've addressed some of these concerns, but I would want to see this in writing. My motto is, if it's not in writing, it's not said. I feel very strongly that this is a home that I will spend the rest of my life in and then pass it on to family. I've been in the neighborhood for years, and I renovated my house approximately 4 years ago in 2016, simply taking in consideration the character of the neighborhood. If you look north of my household, it's predominantly semi-detached houses consistent with the east end of the city. And you'll barely see any of the so-called monster type oversized structured on these size lots. I was hoping that I would be in line with the neighbor. I could have extended my back. I could have added on to my front, but chose not to. I just retrofitted the entire new house, and also I have a medical condition. And because of my medical condition, I went for floor-to-ceiling lighting in the back area of the house, and I also went with a Juliet balcony that would open up more lighting. I feel that if they extend the backyard, I will be totally boxed in. Okay, if you look at how close the space is on the north side lot, you know, I guess they call it what, the side setbacks. It's a very, very tight squeeze to begin with. And I even have a hard time dealing with the city's recycle bins. You know, and I'm just concerned about what could happen next to me. I don't want to be boxed in. I didn't buy a townhouse. I specifically bought this house because of open space. I'm just...
Panel members, do you have any questions of the speaker?
So you mentioned that you wanted to see some things in writing and then you were going to be okay with...
I'm not okay with the extension in the front and the extension in the back. You know, and I also had some concerns about the tree. You know, I believe the tree, I like the shade that the tree provides, but if they do add on and the tree, their plan is to keep the tree, and I would like to see the arborist report, and I do want to see the tree. I don't want the tree destroyed. But my concern too is if they do add on, okay, so there goes my sunlight, you know, and then the tree, so I will absolutely have no sunlight. And I've spent thousands of dollars on landscaping my backyard.
I have a question. You said that you're concerned with the front and the back extension. Can you point those concerns towards one of the variances or some of the variances that will affect the decision?
Well, I think they're looking at adding on 10 feet in the back.
But is there a variance they're asking for on that? Right? There's no side, the backyard setback. Just the floor space index. Yeah. But, okay. That's why it won't affect the variances, except for space index.
But sort of when you look at the overall site, right, it's going to be an oversized structure considering the lot size, right? And I'll be surrounded by building, right, as opposed to a neighborhood, right? And when you look at it's Scarborough Road, which is, there's a school on the street. So there's a high demand for a lot of young, you know, entry-level families that can't afford, you know, $1.5 million homes.
Any other questions of the speaker? No? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, he's coming back.
And I have a question.
Okay. The neighbor is talking about shadowing and stuff like that. There's a huge tree, which actually you can see. Summer basically shadows her whole property, I would think. Now, I'll just go through some of the things that she said in her letter. The dealing with, a lot of it deals with the parking and like we're not going to be having parking at the front. Then number 3, she said there's an existing large shed which will further increase the coverage. There is no coverage on this lot. It's not subject to coverage. And the shed is like less than 100 square feet. Okay, then number 4, is talking about the second floor cantilever. Well, there is no cantilever. Okay, number 5, the soft landscaping at the front, while planning has suggested that we provide permeable pavers, which I think is going to satisfy the drainage and everything. And then number 6 is also dealing with the shadowing, and then number 7 dealing with the second-story cantilever again. So we don't have any cantilevers, so we're just going up on the existing walls of the house and no closer to her property. That's about it.
Okay, Count, you have questions?
I have a quick question. I note on the floor plans of your new house, there's a very large, almost garage-sized space labeled as storage of the house. What's the intention? Or is your intention to use that as a garage space?
No, it's just going to be storage of, garden stuff and that kind of thing, snow blowers, whatever. It's not going to be used as a garage. It's not big enough to be a garage. It's only 4 meters because there's a stair inside that goes up to the first floor. So you couldn't even use it for a garage. You can't fit a car in there.
But it has a garage door in the front.
Yeah. Planning was agreeable with that. We changed that, and we had a driveway shown, but we deleted that, and we're just leaving the existing walkway as is.
Thank you.
That's my question, actually. I was just a bit confused. It's also a grade. That room itself is a grade, so it looked like it was designed as a garage.
Yeah, at first we were going to use it as a garage, but then planning said that we couldn't because, so we just changed that.
We have another question over here.
Yeah.
So how far back are you going behind the adjacent house?
How far back? Well, the rear portion that's being extended is about 10 feet. Yeah.
Any other questions? No? Okay, let's take it into committee then. Well, I'll start since nobody. I'll just say this, that there's a couple of homes, 2 stories, like just 2 or 3 houses down. Based on what I could see, there are additions that look like they might even be longer than what this house is, proposed to project. So as much as I sympathize with the opposition's concerns, and several of them are actually not related to this committee, in particular what's at the end of the paragraph regarding liabilities, damages, etc. We have no jurisdiction over that, and the exhaust. I think that the proposal fits within the area in the way it's transitioning. So I would be supporting the application.
I agree with you. If any kind of additions or enlargement, it still fit in the neighborhood for 1-story addition. I do not have any problem with it.
It's being done relatively sensitively, and it's not an overly ambitious addition.
Because some of the concerns really do not involve any kind of variances.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I cannot. I'm ready to move to have a motion for approval with the conditions of forestry number 2, and also with the planning. Is it? They changed the variance change. So,
as amended, so variance number 3 instead of 0.13 becomes 0.43.
Yes, as amended. Yes.
Okay. And then the planning condition.
Yeah, some of them don't.
Permeable paver would still apply.
Permeable
just the
permeable
pavers one.
So that's the only one.
Walkway.
The conditions to have the permeable paver on the front walkway. Okay, that's the motion.
Okay, so the motion is for having a condition for permeable pavers, forestry condition number 2, and the application as amended. Moved by Ms. Chan, seconded by Mr. Reid. All in favor? The application is approved.
Thank you.
And you need to, did you fill in the decision request card? So if you could please, and give it to staff before you go. And that way you'll receive notifications of the decision. Okay, item number 11, 299 Manning Street. And is the opposition still here? Then.
Madam Chair, they are not.
They're not. Okay, let me just read through my sheet here. Panel members, we have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, a covering letter from Wendy Knott, the agent, correspondence from Drew Mandel, the applicant, and another covering letter. Staff reports, planning is asking for refusal of variance number 3. Engineering also sent staff report, and we have forestry asking for condition number 3. We have correspondence in support from residents on Manning, as well as a 16 form letter in support and 1 resident on Euclid, and opposition from 288 Manning and 324 Euclid. So if we can have your name for the record.
Wendy Knott, N-O-T-T, WND Associates Planning Consultant, and with me is Drew Mandel, the project architect.
Okay, now panel members, do you need a presentation or would you like to go to questions?
Yes. I think that might be helpful. It's a unique project, and I would also like to address the planning department comments in the presentation. So I'm going to turn it over to Drew.
I'd like to request also, because it's sort of unique in some sense, that can you also point to the reason of the planning rationale?
No problem. And just at the outset, to be clear, the properties today are 2 separate properties. If the project is approved, they will merge on title to be one property. So the zoning review has treated this as if it is one lot. Okay, I'll turn it over to Drew.
We worked closely with city staff to infill this vacant site to the benefit of the neighborhood. We also spoke at great length with many neighbors, including the 2 adjacent neighbors who are in support of the proposal. The project proposes to restore and occupy the space of the existing structures and a former garage on the site. This image you're looking at is an overlay. The pink areas are the existing, and the white areas are the proposed. We are staying within the envelope of the existing garage. There is no increase in height for no change or negative impact to the neighboring houses. The project is all within the 10-meter allowable height and does not request a height variance. The proposal actually has a reduced footprint relative to the existing conditions. The proposed footprint is 743 square feet smaller than the existing. The house is intended for multi-generational age-in-place and provides live-work options for the family. In the interest of time, I will assume you've familiarized yourself with the layouts, but I'm happy to come back to that and walk through any details if and as you like. Maybe we can switch to the front view. This is a 3D rendering of the proposed front view. The lot is large, but we break the mass into house forms consistent with the street. The proposal pulls the house back from the street relative to existing conditions, more consistent with the streetscape. We've also filled in the missing tooth above the driveway, but the proposal is not a monolith. The streetscape is regularized and normalized, and this is reinforced visually with the cladding material, as the different volumes are proposed to have different shades of the reddish, yellow, and brown brick, familiar and consistent with the neighbors on the street. And then maybe we could go to the, underneath the missing tooth, we've added carriage doors to conceal a parking space leading from the existing driveway. Thank you. And the final image is, for the moment, is a 3D rendering aerial view, which shows the rear of the property, including the proposed green roofs. We add a great deal of planting and soft landscaping to the site. Currently, the site is completely paved. The soft landscaping and plantings and green roof will allow surface infiltration, water retention, and rainwater storage capacity. We will manage the water on the site, and the proposal will dramatically reduce the amount of water runoff. As stated, we've decreased the footprint. The only area we added mass and height is the laneway suite, which was a request from the city to satisfy a broad planning agenda related to housing stock in the city. So Maybe I'll conclude there just by saying we're very excited about reinventing this long vacant garage assembly and beautifying the surrounding views with new residential brick facades, landscaping, and green roofs. And Wendy Knott will complete our presentation, after which I'm happy to entertain questions.
And just to clarify, when Drew was speaking about a garage on the property, we're talking about an auto repair garage that used to exist on the property. So with your permission, I'd like to just address briefly the planning report and specifically note that planning supports the project. They have no concerns with the variances, save and except for the retention of the existing driveway from Manning. I just highlight for you, there's the existing condition, and you can compare that to the rendering that Drew had up for you just a few moments ago. We are not requesting a new driveway. The driveway has existed since the houses were constructed, and the lots were created 100 years ago. Accordingly, in my submission, keeping the driveway will not create a precedent for Manning and will not create destabilization of the neighborhood, contrary to the official plan. It was a commercial use driveway for the auto repair garage. It will become a private single-car driveway. As Drew mentioned, the actual parking space will be beyond the main front wall of the house. It will be screened by carriage doors. The front yard will be extensively landscaped, and the driveway will be constructed with permeable pavers. The front yard setback of the new house, as Drew mentioned, has been pulled back from the existing condition. And what you see there highlighted in blue are the sight lines before and after from the driveway. So the sight line is going to be much improved, thus improving the pedestrian safety of any pedestrians along the sidewalk. We are not requesting a front yard parking pad. And specifically, there is no vehicular access today from the rear lane. And given that we are retaining the building footprint and portions of the building of the former auto repair garage and constructing a laneway house, there's no location available to put a parking space off the rear lane.
You're at 6.5 minutes, so...
Sorry, one last point, Madam Chair.
Thanks.
Last, and certainly not least, due to the personal history of my client, who is here, and you can ask her questions if you like, she has very significant personal safety considerations about using the lane for her vehicular access. You have a letter to that effect that was received, I believe, yesterday. And as I said, she's here if you wish to answer her questions.
Panel members, do you have any questions?
Can we clarify, there's just one parking stall on the site, is that correct?
There
And no
will be,
parking for the
and if you
laneway
look at
house?
the site plan that's there, you can see it's located centrally on the site, where the finger was.
Right.
And in front of that will be carriage doors to screen the view from the street.
So no parking for the laneway house?
It's not required under the bylaw, no.
But you're not proposing?
No, we're not providing an additional parking space. We're providing the one parking space for the new single-family home. So our issue is only with that one variance, variance number 3. And I would just point out to you, it's slightly misstated. It quotes the right bylaw section, but it refers to a corner lot. Clearly, we're not a corner lot.
Oh, I see.
Just in the public notice, it's somehow a reference to a corner lot got inserted.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
I think this is really a complicated one for me because I think it's a beautiful design and a lot of reuse and the massing. I have no issue with that. My concerns are more around the loss of housing stock and a neighborhood of 20-foot lots becoming a 60-foot lot. So I don't know if you can talk a bit more about that side of it.
I'd be happy to. Clearly, there are 3 houses there today, and we consulted with staff about the project. They liked it, but that very issue was why they asked us to include a laneway suite. So we go from 3 to 2 instead of 3 to 1.
Any other questions, panel members?
I only have one concern is because the strong opposition by the planning department about the access from Manning. And is it because the design you always set out that you will not use the laneway to go to your park, or is it not possible? I'm just trying to say why they're so against it.
I think as a general proposition, planning department likes to not to increase the number of driveways. But in this case, we have a driveway. We're not asking to create a new vehicular access on the street.
Okay.
And when we add that to that, the objective of including a laneway suite and retaining the portions of the old auto garage, from a practical point of view, there's no space left to put a parking space from the laneway.
Additionally, architecturally, there is a misalignment of the grades from the laneway to the garage. Creates additional cost and difficulty.
Oh, okay.
For access there, and so the more suitable space would be where the laneway suite is occupying the space, and no.
So it's, as very often happens, it's a balancing of public interests. And in this case, we adopted city staff's recommendation to include a laneway suite and keep the existing driveway, again, not creating a new driveway.
Any other questions?
Are there any other homes along the street that have front entry driveways off Manning?
I will be perfectly frank, they are limited. But the fact that we have one, and my client bought the property with the understanding that she would be able to keep it, is really not a change to the character of the neighborhood. To me, it's not a precedent, therefore, that can be used for other properties to come and get a driveway.
There are, I'd add, some casual use on a number of the corner lots where the casual use is similar.
Okay, any other questions? No? All right, we'll take it into committee for discussion. There isn't any. They're gone.
My concerns are, I mean, I do think it's as I said, a really nicely designed project, and I actually don't have any concern with the driveway, but I have a concern with the project as a whole and implications with something like this. If this were to happen, in multiple instances in a neighborhood, I don't know if that's a net benefit for the neighborhood in terms of depopulation and housing stock. And I think looking at it almost inverse, I mean, we often see people getting concerned about infill projects, creating 3 lots from one. And we often, have problems with that. This is the inverse, and so I think it merits the same kind of look and concern.
Yeah, I would like to add that if they were just doing an alteration to the building, a renovation, a rear yard renovation, I might feel differently, but I tend to agree with planning department's recommendation. I think given the fact they're planning on consolidating 2 lots and significantly redeveloping the entire property, I would have to agree with the planning department recommendation that they should have incorporated access from the laneway in this case. I don't think I would feel as strongly if it was just a minor renovation to the house, but in this case, this is a complete, change to the property.
I have a slightly different view because I follow the logic of why they do not use the laneway as access to the parking, because that they're proposing a laneway house. So when you propose a laneway house, it means that you sort of eliminate, unless you put the garage underneath the laneway house. So that logic I can follow. And also, in my opinion, that in this area is actually all sorts of different form or build forms, and these developments, although technically they merge 2 lots into one, but in terms of the design and massing, it's actually following the quite consistent with the whole area, I think, because they have broken it up into smaller massing, and the scale fits. And I do not think that it will set a precedent to further other development, because the other development is going the other way. It's actually dividing lots and build more units. And I don't see that will set a precedent and people will follow. So, and I'm more in support of the application.
I would agree with your comments. I think this is a unique site. There aren't going to be very many, if any, sites similar to this where it could be replicated. I think the design solution addresses the street frontages. See this as an existing driveway. They're not adding a new driveway. And so it's just maintaining the current driveway that is there. And I think this is a good proposal.
I would actually agree with my two colleagues. I think the proposal, I mean, when I was looking at it and going through the agenda, I was kind of trying to figure out what's where, and it, like Ms. Chan said, it's bulky, yes, but it fits in the area. And I don't see anything in the planning report that really, you know, says anything against the actual massing and so forth. It's just about the driveway, and it's an existing driveway. So to me, that to refuse that variance doesn't really make sense to me either.
As they said, the corner too, so they should take the opportunities of both ways to get into the site. And so, but I'd like to put in a condition is that the condition is that it will be looked at one property. How do you face that, the condition?
That prior to the issuance of any permits, the applicant shall provide confirmation that the title of the subject properties has merged and that it's held under one ownership.
Okay, that condition plus the forestry number 3 condition, I like to move for approval.
And engineering?
Oh,
yeah.
Engineering to the laneway street, yeah. The standard engineering conditions you have to comply.
Hang on, we're in Okay, so the motion is moved by Ms. Chan to approve the application, including forestry number 3, the engineering conditions, and the other condition that you just read. So do I have a seconder? Okay, seconded by Mr. Solomon. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, your application's approved. Okay, the next item is item number 12, which is 33 Beaconsfield. Is the opposition still here? Okay, can you grab a seat along the front? Panel members, we have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, correspondence from Gary Epstein or Eisen, the applicant, email correspondence from Heritage Preservation Services, staff report from planning recommending refusal. We have an engineering report and a Heritage Preservation report, a 17 signature petition in support, and correspondence in opposition from 18 Beaconsfield. Can we have your name for the record, please?
Good morning, members of the committee. My name's Joe Hoffman, Hoffman. I'm from Goodman's LLP, and I'm here on behalf of the applicant.
Okay, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you. As the committee knows, the proposal before it today is a laneway suite. Our client has put a lot of thought and effort into the design. It's a high-quality design that takes into account the site-specific configuration and location. It's largely supported, as the chair said, by the surrounding neighborhood. There's a petition, or not a petition, there's 16 signatures in support. We did have conversations with 2 neighbors outside. We had a productive conversation with Ms. De Silva. She's still here. We also spoke to Mr. Kerr, and as I understand, his concerns are most based on our discussion, as well as the letter he wrote. It's based primarily on the fact that an additional unit is being added, which the committee knows is an as-of-right permission. The variances today are with respect to certain built form measures and landscaping. So just to provide some context to the committee for this site, if I may, above is what's being proposed. This is the survey of the site. And as you'll see at the rear of the site, I can point it out right here, got a rear addition. Next, what's dilapidated garage. And so the proposal is essentially to remove that rear addition and that garage, and in its place, construct a laneway house. At the bottom of the laneway house, there'll be 2-car parking spots, and above, a single-unit dwelling. Just to provide some further context, this is an elevation of the existing conditions. So you'll see there's very little separation right now between the existing garage and the existing rear addition, and the proposal is to have both of those removed. And this is just a picture of what the rear garage looked before the demolition. And I think part of the reason why there's so much neighborhood support for this project is because it is a dilapidated garage, and the building is in need of improvement, and our client's proposing to do just that. And I don't think any neighbors, even those in opposition, Mr. Kerr himself, would argue that this is an improvement to the site. This is the proposed site plan. And you'll see that the rear of the property, there's a mistake. It says a single story. It's a single unit. So it's a 2-story dwelling with 2-car parking on the main floor, and then a single unit on the upper floor. And there's 4 variances here before the committee to permit the laneway house. And as the committee may very well know, the city recently passed the laneway housing bylaw, and there's a number of very detailed performance standards that need to be met. And this house complies with mostly all of them. There's only 4 variances being required, 1 landscaping, and the 3 variances with respect to the massing, in my respectful submission, are 3 variances that all relate to the same performance standard, just under a different name. And I'm just going to walk the committee through that thought process a bit. So what we have proposed is the laneway house, which is set back 6 meters from the closest part of the main house. But that 6-meter setback is only for half the width, actually less than half the width of the laneway suite. The other laneway suite is set back over 14 meters. So the reason we have these variances, because of this 6-meter condition. So that house, the laneway suite, was set back 1.5 more meters, so it was 7.5 meters away from the main residential house. All of the variances with respect to massing would go away because we would fall within the angular plane, 2 stories is permitted as of right, and the height is permitted. What's permitted on that site is 6 meters, provided that 7.5 meter setback is achieved. And we are achieving it for the most part, just not with respect to half of the house. And the reason we can't achieve that 6-meter setback is because of the underground parking. Because if we push that house and make it more narrow by 1.5 meters, what we essentially lose are those 2 parking spaces. And that's a concern for our client, but also a concern for the neighborhood, because what we don't want, and I think what the neighborhood doesn't want, is 2 additional cars trying to fight for what are precious parking spaces on the street. So so to provide context to the committee, and I realize I'm running short of time, what's really important from a planning perspective is the adjacency between the laneway house and the main house, because what's showing on the laneway is actually a permitted condition for the most part. Our client put a lot of thought and detail into how to mitigate that relationship. So you'll see there's 1 window that's facing the interior yard. That window, as you'll see, is actually facing upwards. And so there's no privacy or overlook concerns. There's very little fenestration with the laneway house. Just to provide further context on that point, you'll see how the angle of the laneway suite is on a 45-degree angle, and that's in keeping with the general intent of the bylaw. So the bylaw would require that angle to be taken at 7.5 meters and 4 meters high. What we're doing is taking that angle at 6 meters, but 4 meters high. Just to illustrate how that roof would look, you'll see that it's facing upwards, not downwards into the rear lane. I just want to quickly speak, and I appreciate I'm running out of time, about the planning report. We've got an ECS report. There's no objection. We've got an HPS report. There's no objection. Planning does have an objection, and in my respectful submission, planning is objecting to the proposal because it has recently passed a bylaw, and it thinks it's of the view, not unfairly, that it has to defend that bylaw. And our experience is very little variances are often permitted when dealing with laneway houses, but I think that ignores the context of this particular site. And
Okay, can I get you to wrap up?
I'll wrap up just momentarily,
Like
like in 15 seconds.
15.
The short of it is, if you look at that planning report, there's very thin reasons for why it should refuse. It simply states that there's variances and those variances shouldn't be approved. But it does speak to the policy intent of the bylaw. And if you look at the policy intent, light, privacy, overlook, they're all kept here. Subject to any questions you have, those are my submissions.
Okay, do you want to hear from the opposition first? Okay, we'll have you back.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Randy Kerr, resident owner, 18 Beaconsfield Avenue. I'm also involved with the Beaconsfield Village Residents Association. Because of time constraints and notice restraints on this, we couldn't get anybody else here today. There are other people that are in opposition to this. So I'd like to speak to two issues. I'll try to keep it at 5. Since day one of the laneway standards review and guidelines development, I've been involved in it from day one, consultative meeting out in the East End. I've got several other properties in Toronto, not heritage properties, but old part of Toronto that are now qualified for laneway suites, so I'm interested in the whole process. I also know that there was going to be an impact on our neighborhood, so I wanted to be sure I was up on the applications, the guidelines, et cetera. And I think the guidelines are very important. The Beaconsfield Village Residents Association fully supports laneway suites, but the original discussions were guidelines that were negotiated through a lot of feedback from different community groups, as well as some high-minded objectives, specifically contributing to lower cost rental suites. And I'm not sure that this doesn't meet the physical guidelines, and I don't think it's set for meeting the rental perspective. So I don't think that this application meets those standards. I also think, looking at the variances, there's insufficient setbacks. The agent spoke to the overall setback from the house. Well, there's stairways going into the basement that should be counted so that the width of the building at the back there is a little wider. It's too high, the angular plane isn't met, the soft landscaping is cut by 50%, the height of the building is almost 50% higher than allotted under the guidelines. So it's an overbuild. And one of the problems that we have in the area is these things, there's quite a few of them going on now. Every single application seems to push the guidelines, and we're just interested in the Committee of Adjustment and the appeal process to at least adhere to some of them, okay? We also feel, so speaking away from that, specifically to this application, I got lots of time here. We felt this application was a bit rushed, okay? It went from no permits, October 23rd, 2019, they were doing work without permits, to plans November 21st. I'm sure the builder has put appropriate thought into it, but he didn't put the thought into doing the permits. In addition, those were the original permits for the development of the house. And then afterwards, with a couple of days' notice, they decided to tack a laneway suite onto it. Okay, so one of the problems we have in the neighborhood is we've seen, not just our neighborhood, but other neighborhoods that I talked to other residents associations, is a source of a stealth process of development where they get permits to do one thing on a property, they add to it, they change it, and then the final look of the property is different than what was originally envisioned by anybody that may have signed a petition supporting it. I know some of the people that signed the petition, I managed to download it. I question whether they were given a full explanation as to the impact of the neighborhood. Every time we do a residents association petition, we do a full explanation. It's in writing in front of them. The points we're making, points that should be considered before we get a signature. I didn't see anything on that petition that resembled that. Okay. What else have I got here? Some time left. So one of the other things, speaking of those issues that the neighborhood is concerned with, I'm concerned with as a longtime resident, and I hear from other residents associations. I'm also co-chair of 14 Division CPLC. The neighborhoods are getting Airbnb inundated, short-term rental. The owner isn't here today that's applied for this. Never met the owner. I've lived on the street for years. And these type of developments are ready-made for short-term rental, perhaps long-term rental. But I think this addition of the laneway suite is speaking to a possibility of an Airbnb type rental. Other areas immediately around our neighborhood have lots of problems that are being brought up with the police about Airbnb parties, lack of control. I know the city's addressing it's under appeal, etc. But those things, if they're not prevented too early on by having the housing stock prepared for it, then we'll have a problem later on. And it all falls back to the same neighbors that signed those petitions will probably raise the question of how do we stop this Airbnb at that point. I think that's all. The last thing I want to say is that the notice wasn't sufficient because they were blocking the signature, the sign on the front of the house by heavy mechanized bulldozers, machinery, and you can see by the tree protection thing they sent in on one of those letters, I reported the damage to the tree. They had heavy machinery blocking the front of the house, so I don't think full advice was given or notice was given in writing, posted properly. So we came to a question on that too. And the tree now has been saved because there's a tree protection zone, which is good because we want to keep the tree canopy in the neighborhood.
I do need you to wrap up.
Yep. Well, he had
Thanks.
6 minutes. Okay.
Okay, any questions of the speaker? No. Yes?
Go ahead. I have a question. Sure. It says the maximum permitted height for the laneway suite would be 4 meters.
Yes.
So that would strictly be then a one-story building? You could not get parking and then a suite above that?
You could get parking. You can get one parking spot. I mean, one of the things that doesn't speak to this application is their front yard parking. I don't see it anywhere on there, so they're just going to use the 2 spots in the back. But if they had only requirement for 1 parking spot, they could reduce the size of the laneway suite, still provide parking back there, and make people a little happier by downsizing it, be more affordable, I think.
But so 4 meter height?
16 feet? No, 14 feet.
So...
And they want 5.87, so that's close to what, 18 feet? Plus whatever shade is coming from that building that high is going to kill the soft landscaping that's been reduced significantly in this application.
So you're not opposed to a 2-story laneway suite, ground floor, and then a second level?
If there was, according to the guidelines, if there was sufficient setback from the house. It's the lack of setback that kills any soft landscaping operation back there for plants and grass and whatever that helps soak up the floodwaters. And by the way, this area has been heavily flooded each summer the last couple of years, so additional runoff is not helpful. And sewer line access from the laneway suite, plus the 2 in the house, plus a 3rd one in the house for the basement suite that'll go in the future.
Okay, any other questions? No? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Hoffman? And please keep it to no more than 5 minutes.
And I'm only going to address the issues raised.
Okay.
There was a number of issues that were raised that I think were based on assumptions that just aren't correct, and I think I need to speak to it. First, Mr. Kerr says he speaks for the neighborhood. There's been no other people who have signed a letter in opposition. It's just Mr. Kerr. What we do have before the committee are 16 letters of support. Mr. Kerr said he never met the owner. The owner's father is here. He knows the owner's father very well. So that's a half-truth. Mr. Eisen, who's the father of the owner, just lives across the street. He's well known by the neighborhood. He actually updated 38 Beaconsfield. It was a dilapidated building, now a point of pride. And I think that's a large reason why there's so much support in the neighborhood, because there's a lot of trust. He raised issues about Airbnb. First, it's not intended to be an Airbnb. There's already a tenant plan for the building. Secondly, the city's passed Airbnb bylaws, and if it was, which it wasn't, it'd have to comply with all of those. He also spoke about notice. Our client has gone above and beyond the typical city-required course. On January 22nd, doors were knocked on, and letters were left in mailboxes, 30 houses in total, asking if you have any concerns, any questions about this development, reach out. There was also, just quickly about the landscaping issue, ECS has raised no concerns. I think it's important for the committee to remember that this is an existing condition, and actually there's going to be 1 more square meter of landscaping from the existing condition. We had our architect run those numbers, but more importantly, there's a 150 square foot deck that's permeable, so actually the condition is going to be improved. There was also a question about whether it's 1-story or 2-story. The only way this project works is if it has the height it has and it's 2 stories. You cannot accommodate 2 stories with 4 meters. And just to reiterate to the committee, 6 meters is permitted, provided there's a 7.5 meter setback. And there is a 7.5 meter setback for more than 50% of the width of the laneway house. It's only because part of the house is set back 6 meters that these variants jump up. Otherwise, but for the landscape variance, which is an existing condition, we wouldn't be here today and we could pull permits from building permit without committee approval. Subject to any questions, those are my submissions.
Yeah, I just need some clarifications, no question. If you look at your drawing A12, you see the 4 meter maximum height. If the laneway house is like a pit roof, is it measured from the top, the highest point?
Yes.
It's not the straight wall. Right?
That's right.
Okay, that's one. Also, if you look at your drawing, this is very, very minor, just I do not understand the drawing. If you look at the bubble for the elevations, what is L and S? You have L and S to every elevation. I do not know what that means.
That's a good question. I believe that's the level of the top of floor by the looks of it.
Therefore, okay. I mean, it's the first time I've seen that term, the acronym. That's if you know what it means.
Okay, any other questions? No? Okay, we'll take it into committee then. Discussion?
There's a lot of support though.
I think it's pushing it, right? And this is what happens with a new bylaw. Really, it is a difference of 1.5 meters. But what's giving me some comfort is that that's only really for half the lot. And so I think there's an openness that's created. It's not like it's connected townhouses in front of it. There is a lot of open space that kind of negates that concern for me. So I'm going to be supporting this.
That was exactly going to be my point, that there's so much open space on the north side of the property. So, yeah, I would agree with you.
I would agree with those comments as well.
I'll forward a motion to approve, subject to the regular development engineering conditions and the Heritage Preservation Services condition.
I know.
Okay. A motion to approve, including heritage and engineering conditions, moved by Mr. Reed, seconded by Ms. Larson. Any in favor? Okay, your application's approved.
Thank you.
Sir, did you fill in? Please give it to staff. Thanks. Okay. Item number 16, 311 Beresford. The opposition still here. Grab a seat there. Okay, panel members, we have before us copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. Correspondence in support from 310 Runnymede Road, as well as 9 form letters from residents on Beresford, and opposition from 321 and 309 Beresford. Okay, your name, please, for the record.
Morning, Madam Chair. Jay Smith. I'm the agent for 311 Beresford. We have come to an agreement on the project. We are going to change the peaked roof on the rear addition section to a flat roof with a maximum height of 8.3 meters.
So are you changing any variances then, or as
No,
a result?
no,
No?
sure.
Okay. Okay, and you're okay with that?
With the roof, yes. There's only one other option.
All right, so did you still want to speak then, or? Okay. Okay, can you do like a really brief presentation then? I assume you've...
I'll just speak to the building length,
Okay.
being that that's the one that is an issue. As you know, there are multiple projects with that length. We spoke with staff at length. The only issue they had was the front yard parking, which we worked through with them, and there is an application in with transportation for a parking pad pending outcome of the hearing. There are 5 properties in the immediate area with lengths similar or over, including 146 Evelyn at a length that was approved at 21 meters, 432 Armadale, 19.2, 372 Runnymede, 20.02 meters that were all recently approved. We feel that the length of the building is so that we don't have to add a 3rd story to try and get space, and we're trying to keep the front street view consistent with what's there now.
So there's an existing garage at the back, right?
That is being removed.
Yeah, so what's the reason why you cannot provide, replace that parking at the back?
It's not usable now. The space between the houses is too tight to get.
It's too tight?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. And I do have pictures of the parking and the current streetscape as well as.
No dimension, but yeah. I don't see the dimension of the laneway, but I believe you.
It's 6.5 feet approximately. Front yard parking is existing. It's an existing condition for multiple homes up and down the road. I have pictures of other properties adjacent to it that all have similar parking, whether it be legal or not, but it is a common feature of the neighborhood. And so as you can see, the parking is very common in the front yards.
So you're proposing to have parking in the front on the...
We're going to maintain the front parking that's there now, and we've applied for a legal parking pad.
The other side of the walkway, in your property, right?
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, it is entirely on 311 Beresford.
Okay.
And the change that you're making to a flat roof at the back does not affect any of the variances?
It does not. What we're doing is stopping the runoff going towards his open backyard. So we've agreed to the flat roof to stop that from happening on the new addition.
But the eaves, the variance for the eaves, that's
an existing condition. You can see on the right, basically they're currently almost touching. So the eaves are an existing condition in the front, and in the back again we'll be sloping away from the neighbor to stop that water. That is the existing 2 houses. So as you can see, they're almost touching at this point.
On your site plan here, it just shows existing soft landscaping in the front yard. It doesn't show your parking pad.
No, because the parking pad is not approved yet. We have applied for it, and they are, and we will still be maintaining the correct landscape area.
That's what I wanted to ask.
Yes.
Whether it would affect your parking
No.
pad, would affect the required front yard landscaping.
No, we will be able to maintain that.
I just have a question then about the parking variances. If you intend to have a parking pad,
Yes.
we approve like 0 parking spaces and you're putting one back, then don't you have to have a, or am I like...
I'm not exactly sure. We originally on the submission, we had showed the parking pad on the drawing. And the planner asked us to remove that, but she is also of the understanding that we are going to apply for a legal parking pad. I think she wanted it removed because at this point, that pad is not legal.
You might have to come back for a parking variance.
We may,
I just wanted to-
planning was not in support of the 0 parking, or
Okay.
of the parking.
Well, as long as you're aware, I
yeah.
just thought it was a little strange.
It is, yeah.
Okay. All right, any other questions? No, well, let's hear from the opposition. Hi, Hi, can we have your name and address?
Sean Davison, 309 Beresford. I'm the neighbor to the south. You can see half of our house.
Okay.
So, as discussed, we had two issues that were actually in your deck. One was the eaves and the overflow onto our property, which we resolved being a flat roof. The other one is just literally the length of the property. So this is the only venue to have this. So this is the left is the existing backyard property. As you can see, both of our houses are aligned. And on the right is the difference between the proposed at 19 to 20 meters and the bylaw, which states 17, from our understanding. It's still not great, but it is definitely less. It will also save the tree, although it is not 30 centimeters at 3 feet high. There is a giant Chinese red maple there that is part of probably the biggest access to our accent in our backyard and gives us a lot of shade and is one of the reasons we bought the house 2 years ago. But concerned that might, now we know that's not a bylaw issue, but the bylaw states 17 meters. We understand that bylaws need to be moved every so often, variance, but in this case, we don't understand why.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any questions of the speaker? No? Okay, thanks. If you can just address that one.
Yeah, as I said, Madam Chair, there's lots of precedent in the neighborhood. Most homes are being approved much larger in that neighborhood than 17 meters. The lot is fairly narrow, and we are trying to avoid a third story in order to get enough space, in order to keep the streetscape consistent with what is existing.
Okay, any questions of the
Is there any
agent?
discussion in trying to cut down the size to reduce it by any amount?
We have talked, we did the flat roof to reduce the impact of the snow. We talked about the building length. The neighbor also understands that there is precedent and houses just south of them have been approved at that length or longer. When we had the discussion outside, it didn't seem like it was, a huge issue. If we need to make some minor adjustments, we can do that, but, we're hoping to get it approved as plans submitted.
It was raised, but knowing that.
Okay. As much as I really like to hear your voice, I can't speak anymore. Sorry. Okay. Does anyone have any more questions?
A quick question.
Yes.
When they're measuring the depth, does it go out to the end of the deck? Does it go out to the end of the deck?
No.
It's just to the edge of the deck.
It's just the edge of the rear addition. And the rear deck is not big enough for space or to overlook the neighbors. The rear deck is simply access to the backyard.
And just for clarity, the flat roof portion, is that just basically the second half, the rear half of the building?
That is the complete rear addition.
So all the new construction would have a flat?
Absolutely, to reduce the impact, yeah.
Okay, any other questions? And the house, I noticed if you're facing the house to the right, there's several additions. And you're saying yours is going to be about the same?
Absolutely. And our FSI is, we're asking for 0.7. FSIs in the neighborhood are as 1.2. Even on Beresford, there's 0.92 recently approved, 0.88, 0.78. So our FSI is actually lower than most that have been approved. I think I have a dozen here that are over 0.8 in the neighborhood.
What radius did you use?
We're at 0.7.
No, the radius
500.
of your 500. Okay.
No, just the addition. For the new section, the new addition?
Okay, any other questions? Okay, let's take it into committee. Okay, discussion?
Yeah, for discussion, I like the fact that they tried to keep it to 2 stories, and I know that then pushes out the depth issue. But I think the incremental change between the 17 permitted meters versus the 20 or 21, whatever it is now, is not enough to say.
Okay, any other comments?
I understand, I sympathize with the neighbor that the proposed building will extend, it seems, about 7 meters beyond the back of their house. And so even going with the 17 meter, which is permitted, it would extend pretty far behind. And I think just try to minimize the impact would be to keep it at the current bylaw depth of 17 meters. That's the only concern I have, is that dwelling depth.
So you're saying that they should meet the bylaw requirement of 17?
You would propose refusing variance 3. Okay, any other comments?
I don't see you can keep, you refuse variance 3 and still have the same proposal. Everything will be changed. FIs and everything.
That's what my concern is as people are building additions and extensions, those matters are going to start to impact the abutting neighbors. And so how do you have additions and try to minimize what the impacts are on your neighbors?
I think I would agree with you.
Okay, any other comments?
Through you, Madam Chair, if I may, and
Actually,
I
no,
know
you can't.
we're going to reduce the second floor by a meter, if that helps.
We're in committee now.
Okay.
And we can't redesign on the fly anyway. Okay. Does somebody want to move
My
them?
comment is that if you refuse variance 3, is a refusal for the proposal. I don't think we can refuse one variance. Can we configure it, design?
Anybody want a motion? And just to clarify, Mr. Solomon, you're talking about the entire, having the entire addition. Not just the- All right. Well, we have to make a decision, so.
I'll put forward my motion just to approve as submitted, subject to conditions, but I guess if it's.
We don't have, there is no report.
Well, sorry, to like the flat roof from the existing rear wall, so all new construction,
Okay.
rear of the existing rear wall be.
I would say that reason is that I think it does give, I understand the impact to the neighbor to the south, but one thing that mitigated is because it's on the north side, so in terms of sunlight and all, I do not think they will suffer so much. But it does, the second story is a little bit too high for me, but I still think that it is a reasonable proposal. I will second you.
All in favor? Motion's moved by Mr. Reed, seconded by Ms. Chan, with the condition of roof in the rear. Opposed? Okay. So it's, your application's approved.
Thank you.
And did you fill in the card? You have to give it to staff over here. Okay, thanks. Okay, the last item this morning is 507 King Street. Okay, we have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, covering letter from Christina Glass, the agent, 2 renderings of the subject property, and we have staff report from planning as well as tree protection. They want forestry condition number 2. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Kim Kovar, still. I'm here on behalf of the owner of the property. My client purchased this property entered into the agreement a year and a half ago and purchased the property last year. It's 507 King East, and I've put up a photo on the overhead for those of you. It's just underneath the flyover, the Richmond and the Adelaide ramps coming down, so some of you may recognize the building. And I'm just going to put up on the screen as well a copy of the version of the there. So what I've highlighted in yellow is the proposed rooftop addition that this application relates to. My client is seeking to maintain the existing historic building, and I'm calling it historic. It is not yet listed or designated, but we do anticipate that coming in its future at some point. So the proposal is to maintain the existing building, use it for office uses, and the yellow in the back is a 1-story addition proposed to be added on the roof in order to accommodate a lounge and a seating area, basically amenity space for office tenants in the building. It includes that indoor area in yellow, and then you can see that little roof over top. That's a partially covered outdoor amenity space for the benefit of tenants in the building. The only other changes being proposed, enter the building today, coming in off of King Street, door right here. There is a pop-up staircase proposed here that provides emergency exiting from the top of the roof down. That's proposed as new. And this pop-up here, the elevator overrun necessary to get the office tenants up to the lounge proposed on the roof of the building. There are a series of 6 variances proposed, and as noted in the planning department's memorandum, and planning staff, of course, are supporting the application. The only one that doesn't actually reflect the existing uses in the building today is the first variance, and that is the height variance. The bylaw permits 12 meters. The existing building is 16 meters tall, and with that little 1-story addition at the back, it would go to 19.3 to the very top of the addition area. So that is the height variance. It has been designed in consultation with city staff and with Heritage Preservation Services staff. It was actually reduced in size as a result of that and located in that back corner of the building, so it's not visible, or it certainly has no visual impact from King Street, which was the concern that Heritage staff had initially raised. The second variance relates to the proposed use. The zone is an industrial zone. It currently permits a range of non-residential uses, industrial uses, and what I would call quasi-office uses, studio uses, offices for particular sorts of businesses, but not general office. So it's a broader range being requested. So that is the second variance. And then 3, 4, 5, and 6 just relate to the existing situation on the site today. There's a large parking lot in this area here. It actually accommodates twice the number of required in that area. It accommodates double the number of parking spaces required by the bylaw, and it operates rather informally today, so we don't actually have the designated loading spaces striped, but that's the condition that's been on the site for years. The parking space dimensions, they are what they are, and they're existing, and they're fully functional. The driveway width, the driveway is an appropriate width. Only 1.5 meters is actually on the property today because the city expropriated a little strip of land along the side a number of years ago, and so a portion of the driveway is in the right-of-way, so that's a technical variance. Again, it reflects the existing situation. And the same thing for the setback from the lane. It has nothing to do with the addition. It's the existing situation. So we, planning staff are here in support. There is a forestry condition. We have discussed it with them. We understand it, and it's acceptable to us. The proposal fulfills many of the objectives of the King Parliament Secondary Plan, which is to reuse historic buildings and in particular use them for employment uses in this area of the city. There are numerous policies in the secondary plan calling specifically for reinvigorating and creating employment areas in this part of King Parliament. I know there are a number of tenants in the building who are here today. Residential uses are not a permitted use on the site today. When my client purchased the property, there were a number of residential tenancies in there. Residents have been living in the building for various periods of time. So my client, as part of this process, has gone through the City of Toronto Act process to deal with demolition of rental units. So that's the city's Section 111 process. That report has been prepared. It was at Community Council at the most recent meeting last week. It has been recommended for approval. So there is a package that has been recommended by staff and Community Council to provide for tenant assistance and relocation and notice and compensation, all in accordance with city's requirements. That will go to City Council at the next council meeting. I know we did have a chance to speak in the hallway, and I know that tenants aren't happy about what's happening in the building that they live in today. But with respect, it is a different process that City Council is going to deal with. It has nothing to do with the variances that are before the committee today.
Okay.
Thanks. Of course.
So given that you're already moving ahead with the rental agreement or something,
yeah.
So how do you feel if we put it as a condition that you have the planning department
that we have to obtain approval under Section 111? That's fine. I mean, we're basically there. We will have that approval at the next council meeting. We expect. It's certainly been recommended by staff and by Community Council.
I think the recommendation in the planning report addresses that.
Yes, that's right. I just asked whether it's okay if we put it as a condition.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
That rental relocation plan, are any rental units being offered, or what exactly?
No. The package that has been recommended by city staff and that my client have agreed with is set out in the a report dated January 13th from city staff, and it recommends, sorry, just one second here, tenant relocation and assistance to assist all eligible tenants of the existing rental units to the satisfaction of city staff. So they will provide details. My client will have to enter into an agreement with the city for those terms. In addition, the thing that city staff recommended was that if within the next 15 years, my client should decide that maybe it does want to come back and rezone this land for some residential purposes, at that point, it will then have to replace these units. We're not getting away with anything here in case one day we change our mind. But the fact is, today, residential uses are not permitted on the site, and the proposal is 100% employment uses in the building.
Okay. So we'll...
One more really quick question. It's entirely offices? No,
yes.
There is and no commercial at grade?
No, there's no retail at grade, and that was something that was discussed as well. The ground floor of the building, and you get a sense of it when you look at the photos, the ground floor is actually 1.5 meters or 2 meters in the air. It's actually quite high. So it doesn't really work for retail, and it was an issue that was discussed with staff, and staff are recommending 100% employment, like non-retail employment.
Okay, we'll have you back after we hear from the opposition. So how many of you are speaking? One? Yep. Okay. So to start, I need your name and address, and then you have the floor for 5 minutes.
My name is Felix Wedgwood, and my address is 507 King Street East.
Okay, go ahead.
Good morning, Madam Chair and committee members. Thank you for your consideration today. I'm a photographer. I live and I work in 507 King East. I just want to speak to item 1, the variance for the zoning of I-1 and the change of that from I-1 to commercial office space. Artist live work is a permitted use in I-1. And it is in keeping with the downtown plan, whereas commercial or co-working space isn't as compliant with the downtown plan. Offices do not function in the same way as studios do. Studios are really kind of light manufacturing spaces. And examples of that in this building would be custom picture framing, which has existed inside the building, or a florist, or a recording studio. There's even been a movie theater in this space, whereas offices are kind of administration spaces where people primarily work on computers. So the only type of art activity that could really take place in this proposed new use would be work on a computer. Whereas based on the current zoning, they describe in the bylaw the artist's space as including studio use for the purposes such as photography, painting, art, needlework, tapestry making, pottery making, hand weaving, or sculpting, etc., etc. This is not the kind of use that's going to happen in this space, and is not compliant with the official plan, and will essentially kind of preclude the arts and culture nature of the building. 507 King East exists within a cultural precinct, which has been identified in the downtown plan, in the King Spadina, or rather the King Parliament cultural precinct, and it has been a long-standing feature of the arts culture in Toronto, and it's been written up in Toronto Life and various other publications. It's also called out in the downtown plan in policies 12.6.1, 12.6.2, 12.6.3, which all speak to preserving the culture of this district, which is what this building is zoned for. By altering that zoning or that use, it doesn't comply with the downtown plan. There is no citywide crisis right now for high-grade commercial office space, but there is a citywide crisis for affordable accommodation, and right now the average rent that we're paying is about $17.80 a square foot. Underneath the proposal, that will go up to $182 to $350 a square foot under the current proposed plan, which is astronomical. There is a crisis in Toronto right now, a cultural crisis, as identified by the art stats. 73% of all artists in Toronto are considering leaving Toronto, and the main reason is affordability, because buildings like this are all getting converted and changed into these co-working or very, very expensive leasing propositions. So this plan that's being presented, or this change in the zoning, is going to affect exactly what the official plan is calling for this part of the city, specifically calling out for this part of the city. I just want to make that really clear. It also sets a dangerous precedent, allowing this kind of change in the zoning for the official plan and moving forward. I feel that changing this I-1 zoning to allow for commercial, and it's strictly not allowed, is a precedent that shouldn't be set given the current climate in Toronto. And in closing, I would say my last point is, sorry, I just lost my place here, this variation in the zoning is dependent on a decision that hasn't yet been made at City Council. So, even though Kim did speak to, a decision is going to be made, she doesn't have a crystal ball. She doesn't know what the decision is going to be made. So, none of these decisions have been made yet, and and as such, it seems kind of odd to change that zoning when we're still in the process of determining the outcome of current dwellings and so forth. And that would be it.
All right, any questions of the speaker?
So, do you have concerns with the residential, the non-residential aspect? Because from what you were talking about, it seemed it was strictly relating to the use, the working type use of the...
My concern is that there won't be artist live work, and the city's losing all these artist live workspaces, you know, on a very kind of ad hoc basis. But that's how artists live and work. They live in these older style buildings, and they just are slowly kind of picked away at. And I can name many buildings in Toronto right now that are having this same kind of experience. And artists just cannot present as this massive body to the city and have a voice. We're just slowly being chipped away at. And that's why you have this crisis happening right now. And it's this cultural asset that is built up in the city over the last several decades that has allowed people like Hallmark to suddenly realize there's this opportunity because everyone wants to come to Toronto, everyone wants to be in Toronto because of this cultural diversity that has been built on these spaces by artists living in these leaky old buildings, essentially. And now we're all just getting kicked out, or else the rent is going
Okay.
not...
Okay, this is quick question. How many live work units are in the building right now, to your knowledge?
Currently, there are 6 individuals in the building, living and working.
Living in there?
Yeah, living and working, yep.
Okay, are there any...
There were many more, but they've all been given the...
And would the permission for office uses, would that preclude any live work uses?
My understanding is this, the model for 507 King, the Hallmark has partnered with the family that owns this building. They've also partnered with the same family that owns 50 Carroll. And they're basically employing the same business model, which is co-working. And based on that model at 50 Carroll, it's very open concept. There are a few enclosed spaces, but it is offices essentially. And you're basically leasing it by the hour or by the month.
So there's no live workspace?
None.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks for your time.
Okay, if I could have you really briefly address the concerns that were expressed.
Certainly. Just first, with respect to the live work units, and maybe I didn't say in the beginning, there are 13 units in the building in total. Just the gentleman mentioned 6, I think, because I think he's suggesting there were 6 artists living in, but there's a total of 13 units, just so you know. 12 of them are required to be dealt with because they were tenant occupied. The 13th didn't count because it was actually owner occupied when my client purchased the property. The gentleman is correct. There is something called an artist live-work studio, which is actually a permitted use in this zone. But that's not what's happening in this building. An artist live-work studio isn't what we all think of as live-work units. It's a different thing. It's defined as a suite consisting of a combination of a studio area used for the production of art and a living area containing not more than one habitable room. And this is where it's different. Where the owner of the lot agrees with the city, pursuant to Section 5 of the City of Toronto Act 1975, to provide for the purposes of a social housing program. So these are registered social housing buildings. That's what an artist live-work studio is. A rental unit or a live-work unit or a dwelling unit is not a permitted use on the site. So to answer Mr. Salomon's question about whether permission for the employment would preclude the live-work units, permission for the employment wouldn't preclude them, but the current in-force zoning does preclude them. And that is why the city staff and community council have supported the Section 111 application, because the use, although nobody really wants to displace an artist, the use is just simply not permitted in the building, and the units aren't permitted. And I have no idea how they were created over time, but they're not compliant. And then the only other thing I want to comment on is the suggestion from the speaker that somehow the area is zoned for cultural uses and the proposal doesn't conform to the downtown plan or the official plan, or at least doesn't conform as well as having artist housing in here. And that is just simply wrong. The King Parliament secondary plan designates the property mixed-use areas A. The major objectives, in fact, the majority of the major objectives set out in the secondary plan are specifically expressing the goal of creating employment uses in the area. It's King's Parliament's role as a major employment area with the city will be promoted by enhancing and encouraging the retention and the expansion of commercial and light industrial activities, particularly in the business services, film, media design, and technology. Retention and reuse of existing buildings, especially heritage buildings, will be encouraged. Creation of good quality working and living environment in King Spadina will be encouraged. The range of permitted uses on the site today meet the objectives of the secondary plan, and the addition of general office uses also meets the objective. And in terms of the kinds of office or quasi-office uses that are already permitted on the site today, artist photographer studio, communication and broadcasting establishment, workshops, design studio, industrial computer service, laboratories, publishers, software design and development establishments. There are already a range of very similar uses to what my client's proposing putting in here permitted today. So it's really not a significant leap to permit general office as well as the specialized offices in the bylaw. And it clearly conforms with the purpose and intent of the official plan.
I need a clarification. That's why I'm a little bit confused. You're not applying for rezoning, right?
No.
That's why when I hear the opposition as if you're applying for a different use, it's only I understand now that
No, the zoning stays industrial.
it's non-compliant use now.
That's correct. So we are maintaining the existing I-1 uses. Those uses, many of those uses will be in the new building as well as general office uses.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Okay, we'll take it into committee. Discussion and a motion.
I believe the variances are minor. We have a community planning report which sets out conditions and does support the proposal. So I think it's appropriate.
Yeah, I was a little bit confused as if we're converting the building into something else, but it's actually permitted use. Office is permitted use. Is the current use of artist space is not permitted, but the council and with the community, it seems that they are working on that. And then I suggested if we are going to approve, we should put that condition as to the demolition agreement with the chief planner. That's fine.
I would agree. I mean, I think that certainly the addition of the amenity space, et cetera, and it doesn't change anything in terms of the character of the neighborhood. I think that what's being proposed on this site is appropriate. I am sympathetic to the space being lost for artists. That's really not what's before us, and unfortunately, part and parcel of what's happening with these variances is that the city has now asked the owner to bring uses of the building into conformity as well, and that's why these reports are going to council. So I would be in support of the application.
I'm just saying, even if we refuse these variances, we will not stop them from turning into a office.
Well, the report is still going to move forward to council. Okay, I need a motion then. Are you moving a motion?
So I would move approval of the requested variances with conditions from community planning and urban forestry. Is there a
two? Forestry number 2.
Forestry number 2.
That's it.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, so I have a motion to approve moved by Mr. Salomon, including forestry number 2 and the planning condition, seconded by Ms. Larson. All in favor? Okay, the application's approved. And to you gentlemen, if you want to receive notifications, you have to fill in those decision request cards and then give them to staff before you leave. Okay, and the committee's adjourned until it's now 12:35.